Chapter 2704 The Azure Ghost Celestial King App 2704 The Azure Ghost Celestial King App. With a tap of his foot, Ling Han stepped on the air. Pang! His whole person shot out, descending. Tong! He landed, and did not distinguish where he was at all. He directly dropped into the lava, and instantly created a splash of lava that was several hundred meters tall. Practically this whole area of lava had been splashed out from the impact. This commotion was so great that Du Shi and the others couldn't help but turn to look at him. When they discovered that this person was actually Ling Han, Du Shi was instantly dumbfounded. How could it be Ling Han? How could he possibly have such great speed? Why had he run over? Even if he was loyal, that was not the right way to show it. Ling Han smiled slightly. Brother Du, you ran too quickly, and made it very tiring for me to chase after you. Du Shi could only gape, and did not know what to say in response. Yet those pseudo-heavenly venerates that had pursued him would not just stand blankly there. It was true that they were only left with the instincts to battle, but this also meant that they could completely ignore anything surprising. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. They all charged towards Du Shi. Du Shi wanted to flee, but it was already too late. He could only take it head-on. He circled his hands, and he unleashed his full power with a loud shout. Pang! A heavy bang rang out, and Du Shi was instantly sent flying. Just when it looked like he was about to fall into the lava, a figure flashed. Ling Han had long darted out, catching the back of his robes just in time. Ling Han, leave me be. Run, it is more important to report the news. Du Shi uttered, coughing up blood. Having survived after sustaining a blow that was practically the combined power of so many pseudo-heavenly venerates, he was indeed deserving of his reputation as one of the big shots of the martial academy, an overlord of ninth heaven. Ling Han smiled slightly. Brother Du, just rest on the side, and see how I will kill all enemies in my way. He placed Du Shi on a floating rock, and then turned to look towards those pseudo-heavenly venerates. These pseudo-heavenly venerates showed no respect. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han was only in the ninth heaven, even if they were facing a seventh-tier heavenly venerate, they would still continue their charge without the slightest hesitation. Thus, they all moved. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. Du Shi could no longer bring himself to watch. It was clear that death was inevitable for Ling Han, and with the serious injuries that Du Shi had now sustained, he, too, would not be able to escape. He felt great regret. He feared that he would have to disappoint Amu and the others. Shua. A sword light flashed past, dazzling the skies, and also causing everything else to fade with its brilliance. Du Shi couldn't help but narrow his eyes, and when he opened them again, he could see that 7 out of the 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates had actually already fallen. Either their heads were severed, or they had been cut in half. This. Ling Han had killed 7 pseudo-heavenly venerates with a single strike? No matter how weak these pseudo-heavenly venerates were, they were still pseudo-heavenly venerates. They were stronger than even the strongest ninth heaven celestial king. A light flashed through Du Shi's mind, and he exclaimed, You have broken through to the ninth heaven. Aside from this, there was no other possible explanation. Since Ling Han had already started killing, he naturally would not continue to hold back at all. He continued his charge, and he soon killed the other 3 pseudo-heavenly venerates as well. However, after the battle, his face was also extremely flushed, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. How could having 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates attacking him at the same time be just a game? Chapter 2705, 2705 Rescue. 2705 Rescue. This was also because these pseudo-heavenly venerates lacked intelligence, or they would not have clashed head-on with Ling Han, but chosen to adopt a moving-about strategy as well as mutually supported each other. While the strength of such 10 people might still not suppress Ling Han, it would at least allow them to stay undefeated. But now, 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates were slain as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, and the only price was the mouthful of blood Ling Han spat out. "Brother Ling, you really are extraordinary." Previously, Du Shi had always called Ling Han by his name as he himself was at the 9th heaven, while Ling Han was only at the 8th heaven. However, since Han was similarly at the 9th heaven now, Du Shi had completely acknowledged Ling Han as an existence of the same level. Moreover, Ling Han's strength far exceeded his own even though helped by the divine demon sword. Ling Han's strength could not be denied. Ling Han chuckled, and put away the divine demon sword. "Brother Du, what's going on?" Ling Han asked. Du Shi's expression became solemn. "Amu and the others are still trapped in the mountain, we have to hurry and rescue them." He paused, and then smacked his forehead. "My head's all muddled because of the urgency. Let me start from the beginning. The matter was very simple. More than 200,000 years ago, the 3 of them came here for a training trip, attempting to find an opportunity for breakthrough. After tens of thousands of years of bloody battles, they had gotten some inspiration, but there were still some deficiencies. During this period, they had also met some people, who fought with them together in battles. That was until 100,000 years ago, when they accidentally discovered an ancient cave, and took the risk to venture inside. Unfortunately, the outcome was that not only did they not find any natural treasures, they poked a hornet's nest. Inside, there were countless pseudo-heavenly venerates in seclusion, and under the order of a mysterious person, many pseudo-heavenly venerates were awakened, and proceeded to completely besiege them. Fortunately, Du Shi and the others had made a lot of preparations before they had come here to train. They even possessed heavenly venerable tier defensive treasures, but still couldn't kill their opponents to escape from the siege. This hardship lasted for 100,000 years, and they had almost exhausted the heavenly venerable tier treasures. They had no choice but to forcefully break through the encirclement. It was obviously unrealistic for everyone to escape together. Since Du Shi was the fastest, the others covered for him so he could break through the siege, hoping that he could escape to the martial academy, and bring the powerful heavenly venerate here to flatten this place and rescue them while they were at it. Ling Han nodded, and said, "Where is the exact location?" Du Shi pressed a finger onto Ling Han, and transmitted to him the entire route which he had taken to escape. Ling Han thought for a while. "Brother Du, you should rush back to the Martial Academy to report the news. I'll think of a way to rescue Amu and the others. No matter how bad is the situation, I will delay them for a while until the arrival of reinforcements." Ling Han didn't commit to taking care of everything, because he knew Betrif Desolate Moon were to bring out all the 9th heaven celestial kings. There ought to be tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates hidden in the volcano. With so many pseudo-heavenly venerates attacking together, even a second-tier heavenly venerate might not be able to handle it. Ling Han couldn't be sure, because he had no idea how powerful the battle prowess of a second-tier heavenly venerate could be. "Brother Ling," Du Shi objected instinctively. How could he let Ling Han fall into danger? "You should go to the Martial Academy to report the news, and I will go back and fight side by side with Amu and the others. Which one of us is stronger?" Ling Han said with a smile. Du Shi opened his mouth, but was at a loss for words. After a while, he nodded. "Brother Ling, you must be cautious, don't put yourself in danger." "I will definitely come back as soon as possible," he said with a serious expression. "All right." Ling Han nodded. Du Shi glanced at Ling Han again, took a deep breath, and set out. It wasn't appropriate to remain in this place for a long time, as it was already extremely dangerous in the first place. Should there be another wave of pursuers, he would definitely be finished. Ling Han went back first to meet up with the large black dog and Wally. "What, you are going to save those people?" The large black dog jumped up immediately after hearing this. Brat, don't think that you can run amok fearlessly just because you are impressive, awesome, and strong. That's tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates. If everyone throws a punch, you will probably be beaten flat even if you have successfully cultivated the indestructible divine metal physique. Tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerate, this was something that was impossible to appear in the celestial realm, and the large black dog could not imagine how powerful this force would be. Ling Han smiled. Don't worry, I won't act recklessly. I will play it by ear. The large black dog tried to persuade him again, but Ling Han just wouldn't listen. Damn dog, I heard from Du Shi that there might be Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone in that cave. The large black dog immediately stopped persuading. Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone was the key to whether they could achieve cultivation of the indestructible divine metal physique, so he really had no way to refuse. You and Wally leave first, Ling Han said. Even if he didn't mention it, the large black dog didn't plan on staying here, and this was the case for Wally as well. The latter had always positioned himself as one meant for an analytical type of battle, and when it came to activities such as combat, he had never wanted to participate in them. Ling Han set off and walked towards the depths of the volcano. With the guidance of Du Shi's route, he naturally didn't have to take any deviating paths. It only took a day when he came to the place, and saw a hole in the mountain wall where lava was flowing down, covering most of it. If one did not observe carefully, one would definitely not be able to find it. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, strode in, and the lava hit his body, all of it blocked by the golden seals, unable to touch his body. Inside this cave, there was crimson magma flowing everywhere, and filled with supreme regulations of fire, there wasn't even any breathable air. Although Ling Han no longer needed to breathe air, due to habit, he still felt a little uncomfortable. There was no need to worry about the issue of lighting. The flowing of magma in this place illuminated the surroundings brightly. Ling Han strode forward. The cave was eerily quiet, with only the sound of magma flowing, which was very faint. There were many protruding stones on the wall of the cave, some of which were very sharp, with magma attached to them. If one was to get scratched by these, it was likely to pierce the body, and supreme regulations of fire would be injected, which would instantly put to death even a ninth heaven celestial king. It wasn't only on the wall of the cave, but also on the ground, which was even more terrifying. If one was to step on them, the whole person might just be reduced to ashes in an instant. Ling Han didn't dare to be arrogant. After all, he had yet to achieve cultivation of the indestructible divine metal physique, and even if his body was to be like divine metal, it might also be burned and melted away. This was originally a place where divine metal could be melted. He moved forward cautiously, and suddenly came to a wide clearing after walking for a while. Once again, he saw a familiar scene. On the spacious flat ground, there lay a number of giant eggs surrounded by rays of black light. This place was actually extremely hot, but seeing these gigantic eggs actually caused a cold chill to rise up in one's body. As expected, Desolate Moon actually brought those celestial kings here, and continued to communicate with Hysteria, whose whereabouts were still unknown, while transmitting great power. Amu and others were not found here. Looking at these giant eggs, Ling Han thought of a risky idea. With the power of the divine demon sword, could it cut open the giant egg and send the pseudo-heavenly venerate inside it to hell? Now that these pseudo-heavenly venerate were in a state of seclusion, and lacked the ability to fight back, even hundreds of millions of them would just be like trash, let alone tens of thousands. With this thought in mind, he could bear it no longer. He took out the divine demon sword, came up to a giant egg, and slashed it with the sword without hesitation. Pooh! Previously, he had not been able to break this giant egg no matter what he tried, yet now it had been sliced up so easily with a strike of the divine demon sword. Chapter 2706, 2706 Great Destruction. 2706 Great Destruction. Boom! A larger number of pseudo-heavenly venerates were attacking madly, wanting to rip apart this entire canyon. Fortunately, though the mountain rocks could not withstand the violent force of pseudo-heavenly venerable tears, they seemed to have a life of their own. Very quickly, they would grow out again, and their recovery speed was extremely quick. Precisely because of this, AMU and company managed to avert disaster, and defend themselves for countless years. Ling Han. Seeing that the person who had rushed in was actually Ling Han, AMU and Can You both exclaimed. This was too unexpected. Hey, guys, Ling Han said with a chuckle, waving a hand in greeting. Now is not the time for you guys to reminisce, someone said. He had a wine gourd in hand, which was spraying out green light. This light was very amazing, being capable of even blocking the attack of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Only then did AMU and Can You come back to their senses. They hurriedly joined the ranks of defense against the invasion of pseudo-heavenly venerates. Ling Han glanced at them. With him, there were a total of 8 people here. Only one of them was a woman, and from Du Shi's memories, he knew that her name was Lu Zian. These 7 people were all peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings, their evolution index either 11 or 12. They had come here so that they could obtain a trigger for their breakthrough to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Otherwise, even if they possessed heavenly venerable tier treasures, they could not possibly have lasted this long. Unfortunately, the treasures in their possession were not heavenly venerate tools, after all. There would ultimately come a time when they would be exhausted completely, and then they would be overwhelmed by the battle prowess of the pseudo-heavenly venerates. What are you looking at? Move, one of them shouted. If it had not been to help Ling Han come in, they would not have had to release such powerful attacks, which meant that they were now extremely strained. This man's name was Du Ba. Ling Han chuckled. You should be more polite to your savior. Savior? Du Ba was close to madness. As Ling Han arrived, he brought over 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates with him, causing the pressure on them to multiply a good many times over. What kind of savior was this? Yet AMU's heart jolted. You've encountered Du Shi? Chapter 2707, 2707 Last-minute preparations? 2707 Last-minute preparations? Ling Han nodded. Brother Du has already returned to the Martial Academy to report the news. When these words fell, everyone sighed in relief. Good. They could hold on for a few more years, and they would definitely manage to succeed. They had already stayed on defense here for 100,000 years, so continuing to defend for a few more years should be no problem. With the help of the terrain here, there was actually not much difference if there were 7 or 70 pseudo-heavenly venerates besieging them here. That was because the attacks that they could deliver were limited, and were only so many. At the mouth of the canyon, the number of pseudo-heavenly venerates that could attack at the same time was around 10. This also exerted a powerful pressure on them, causing great strain on AMU and the others. Thankfully, they were not using their own power to resist, instead, they were using heavenly venerable tier treasures. Thus, as long as these treasures could still be used, they would be able to continue holding on. None of these were real heavenly venerate tools, but had rather been forged by heavenly venerates. Because devouring metal was limited in amount, how could it possibly be bestowed on their juniors? Ling Han did not move, but rather began searching in the canyon. According to Du Shi's memories, he had vaguely glimpsed the existence of Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone. After all, they had been staying here for 100,000 years. Even if they had been fighting all this time, there would have somehow been that little bit of time where they could observe the surroundings here. Ling Han was searching. If there really was Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone, he would immediately cultivate the Indestructible Divine Metal Physique to perfection. By then, he would be able to turn their defensive stance into an offensive stance, and charge into that group of pseudo-heavenly venerates with his own power, eliminating all his enemies. What are you standing around for? "Come and give us a hand," another celestial king shouted at Ling Han. His name was Liang Taiming. "Hold on." Ling Han's eyes searched his surroundings. If he did not find the Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone, he could only flee once this line of defense was broken. With the combined force of over 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates, even if they were of the weakest level, they still weren't something that he could match. Du Ba, Liang Taiming, and the others were almost maddened with fury. If it was not for the fact that they could not free themselves now, they would definitely give Ling Han a harsh beating now. Even Ken Yu and Amu were slightly displeased. "At present, all of us are in the same boat, you are going too far." Ling Han did not explain. Even if he did, these people probably wouldn't believe him either. For a ninth heaven celestial king to be able to eliminate about 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates, wasn't that the stuff of fantasies? Ling Han had to find the Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone first. After a search, his eyes paused on a groove on the mountain wall. There should have been a stone here before, but it had been removed. The marks were still very new. "Who removed the stone here?" Ling Han asked. No one answered him. "Just what are you here for? Brother Amu?" Ling Han looked towards Amu. Amu had initially not wanted to reply, but having Ling Han call him out directly, there was nothing he could do about it. He answered, "It is with Brother Zhuge." Brother Zhuge's name was Zhuge Xianming. Ling Han already knew who each of them was from Du Shi's memories. He turned to look towards Zhuge Xianming. "Brother Zhuge, please hand that stone over to me. It will be very useful for me." Scram! Zhuge Xianming was furious. "You keep giving all sorts of excuses when we ask you to defend against the attacks. Now, what are you planning?" Ling Han shook his head. "Sorry for this, then. I have no time to explain now. You guys will know in the future." He moved directly, and grabbed out at Zhuge Xianming. "You traitor, could it be that you are a spy?" Zhuge Xianming also countered with full force, meeting Ling Han's movement with his own attack. However, what other ninth heaven celestial king was capable of resisting Ling Han? Even a super freak at peak stage 9th heaven, with an evolution index that reached 12, could not, unless he, too, could use the fundamental power of the Genesis world to temper himself like Ling Han. Pang! With a single blow, Zhuge Xianming was throwing up blood from the impact, his expression incredibly dispirited. Everyone was outraged. Even Ken Yu and Amu were no exception. Ling Han had really gone too far. However, they were immediately shocked. He had injured Zhuge Xianming with a single strike. Could it be that this was a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Ling Han tossed the divine demon sword over to Ken Yu. "I'll lend this to you for a while." Ken Yu was startled. He knew that this was a real heavenly venerate tool. With the help of this item, it would be child's play for him to kill peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings. Even if it came to resistance against a pseudo-heavenly venerate, he would gain a considerable amount of confidence. Ling Han had previously acted completely like he had been here to muck around, yet now he had lent him his precious tool. This clearly was one of their own. Shua! Ken Yu raised the sword and delivered a sweep. A cold light shot into the skies, bearing boundless might. With how powerful a heavenly venerate tool was, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would have to evade, what more when these pseudo-heavenly venerates were at the weakest level. "Surround them and halt the attack." Desolate Moon's voice rang out. He was personally overseeing things here, commanding the battle, determined to seize Ling Han and kill him. Without instruction, these pseudo-heavenly venerates were just a pile of loose sand. Even if they had an advantage in numbers, they would still be fighting on their own, and they could not make full use of their advantage in numbers. However, it was different if there was someone commanding them. Their power would soar immediately. The pressure on Ken Yu and the others instantly increased many times over, so heavy that they were close to losing all hope. But they were all supreme prodigies. Faced with this kind of pressure, they would only become even calmer and more collected. Perhaps, this was the trigger that could allow them to attain a breakthrough, and they might suddenly sense that unique power of the flaming frost realm. Of course, even if they broke through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, it would not be of much use. That was because one would not have any qualitative change in battle prowess when one first broke through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. No matter what, one would have to boost their body art to the same height as regulations. Then, with the combined force of body art and regulations, their battle prowess would more than double. For example, these pseudo-heavenly venerates in front of them belonged to the weakest level, but they were still stronger than any ninth heaven celestial king. The power of a pseudo-heavenly venerate could only be evident with the passing of time. Ling Han did not care about anything else. He grabbed the spatial god tool that Zhuge Xianming possessed, and he soon found a red stone with a sweep of his divine sense. Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone. Ling Han took out the stone, and then stuffed the spatial celestial tool back into Zhuge Xianming's robes. Meanwhile, he walked to the side. He was going to cultivate the indestructible divine metal physique right here, right now. Come, he exclaimed lightly. With a wave of his hands, a large pile of natural treasures appeared on the ground. With the guidance of his hands, treasures flew towards him one after another. The objects here were very mixed. There were celestial medicines that were epochs old as well as dead waters from the underworld and a shell that had been shed by a ninth heaven divine tortoise, and Ling Han grabbed them one after another. He absorbed them into his body, and began refining them. The commotion caused by this was rather loud, causing Ken Yu and the others to turn around repeatedly to see what was happening. Strange expressions appeared on all their faces. Are you making last-minute preparations here? Meanwhile, Zhuge Xianming inwardly said, if Ling Han really can do something worthwhile, then on the basis that Ling Han is trying to save all of us, I will bear with this. Otherwise, I will definitely make Ling Han know that I am definitely not one to stand for humiliation. Time was slowly passing by, and the pressure on AMU and the others was also increasing gradually. With Desolate Moon's instructions, even if there were only 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates that could attack at the same time, he could fully unleash every single person's battle prowess to the fullest. Furthermore, with the endless barrage of spiritual attacks, they were close to the verge of collapse. The fact that they could still continue was merely because they were all supreme prodigies, so their willpower was many times stronger than the ordinary person's. Still, there would ultimately be a limit to their willpower, and they were close to reaching this limit. Chapter 2708, 2708 Indestructible Divine Metal Physique. 2708 Indestructible Divine Metal Physique. AMU and the others had all reached their limit. Originally, Desolate Moon had not been concerned about them at all. That was why he had only sent out a few pseudo-heavenly venerates to besiege them. Killing them sooner or later had been no issue at all. But now that his conspiracy had been ruined by Ling Han, this naturally made him extremely furious. How could he be satisfied without tearing Ling Han to pieces? With his command, the pseudo-heavenly venerates finally unleashed their true battle prowess. AMU and the others were forced to retreat. Some were wounded, blood spraying out and shattered bones glistening eerily. Yet those pseudo-heavenly venerates did not show any change in expression, and were merely loyally executing the command that they had been issued. Ling Han, are you done yet? AMU shouted out loudly. He knew that Ling Han had already been able to kill peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings when he had been only at the 8th heaven. Though it was possible by depending on the help of a heavenly venerate tool, it was extremely possible that he could have gained battle prowess of pseudo-heavenly venerable tier now that he had advanced to the 9th heaven, being able to defeat Zhuge Xianming with a single move. Now, Ling Han would become their only hope. Just a while longer. Ling Han's hands danced, continuously absorbing the ingredients laid out on the ground. There were still 5 more to go. We can't hold on for even another instant. Duba roared. Ling Han sighed, and attached the remaining ingredients to himself. Then, with a move, he threw a punch towards those pseudo-heavenly venerates. Pang! Not only was his battle prowess at the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, he had definitely surpassed these weak versions as well. With a single punch added to the unleashed force from the treasures of AMU and the others, this instantly became a frightening battle prowess, pushing those pseudo-heavenly venerates back again. Sword, come! Ling Han cried lightly, and made a grabbing motion in the direction of the divine demon sword. Xiao! The divine demon sword left can use hand on its own, shooting towards Ling Han. Let's battle. He moved, brandishing his sword. The 9 transformations divine scroll was already unleashed, causing his attack to become incredibly harsh and powerful. Kill him! Kill him! Desolate Moon screamed from outside. Having his business ruined by Ling Han twice filled him with extreme hatred for the latter. 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates attacked, their power incomparably heavy. Yet Ling Han shot out like an arrowhead, meeting them all by himself. Pang, pang, pang. These attacks all landed on Ling Han, shaking him so badly that his body was trembling. However, with him as the main force of attack, AMU and the others finally regained their footing, and managed to maintain their defense. They were both pleasantly surprised and worried. Who would have imagined that a 9th heaven celestial king would actually be capable of fighting a pseudo-heavenly venerates, and could even surpass the latter in terms of battle prowess at that? They were all super geniuses, but compared with Ling Han, just how large was the gap between them? But it was clearly impossible that Ling Han was a match for 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates. He was blasted to the point that his body was trembling madly. Moreover, even if Ling Han could manage to kill these 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates, there were still over 90 other pseudo-heavenly venerates standing behind them. Their only hope was that Ling Han could last for a while longer, right until the elites from the Martial Academy arrived. Pang, pang, pang. Countless attacks landed on Ling Han, but Ling Han did not take even a single step back. If this was any other time, he would absolutely not be so rash, and take on such attacks head-on. However, he was presently cultivating the indestructible divine metal physique. It was only that he had not succeeded. Originally, he would have needed time to slowly cultivate it to perfection, but there was no time for that now. Then he would just have to use the roughest and most direct method. He would use the attacks of these pseudo-heavenly venerates to temper his indestructible divine metal physique. But the problem now was that with his physique sustaining the attacks of so many pseudo-heavenly venerate, how was he going to survive that? Very quickly, Ling Han began to throw up blood, his skin cracking, and revealing the white of his bones. He looked extremely terrible. Exert more force. Just a bit more. Desolate Moon howled from outside, his eyes already bloodshot. A hideous monster that dares not reveal himself, what are you shouting around for? Lu Zian couldn't help but rebuke. Desolate Moon sneered. Once this brat is dead, you all will have to die with him as well. It would be better for you to think of what to make your last words now. Humph, the Martial Academy will soon get the news, and there will soon be a 2nd-tier heavenly venerate or even a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate that will arrive. You had best think of how to make your escape. AMU and the others were unwilling to show weakness as well. With Ling Han holding on alone like this, they could also recover some of their vitality, so their confidence naturally returned. That is enough time to slaughter all of you, Desolate Moon declared coldly. It was definite that this mission had failed. He, too, had to think of some way to return to Hysteria's world, and find a chance for him to start back from the beginning. He continued to issue commands, and the pseudo-heavenly venerates would take turns in the offensive, 10 in a group, continuing to maintain an absolute high pressure on Ling Han. Furthermore, these pseudo-heavenly venerates all had no fear of death or injury. Using their injuries to exchange for injuring their enemies, or even taking down their enemy with them. Just how terrifying was that? Fortunately, Ling Han still had the divine demon sword in hand, and was also helped by the unique terrain here. Otherwise, if over 100 of them attacked him together, even he would very soon be crushed into bits. Faster! Faster! Ling Han thought fervently. Under the violent barrage of attacks, his body was also completely loosened up, and because he was feeling a strong sense of danger, the rate of his absorption of energy greatly increased. On the surface of his skin, the 5 ingredients were rapidly shrinking in size. They were all being absorbed by him. When these objects had all disappeared, Ling Han released a loud battle cry, and actually surged right into the ranks of those pseudo-heavenly venerates. He's fucking crazy. AMU and the others were all dumbfounded. It should be known that the fact that they could last this long was completely because the pseudo-heavenly venerates had not been able to fully make use of their advantage in numbers, but with Ling Han now jumping headfirst into their ranks, had he become muddle-headed in fever, or was he already just giving up entirely? Yet Desolate Moon was overjoyed. He hurriedly issued commands, and made adjustments to the military formation of the pseudo-heavenly venerates. He only left behind 3 pseudo-heavenly venerates to seal off the canyon, while the others were all targeting Ling Han. The person he hated the most was Ling Han. Furthermore, once he killed Ling Han, wouldn't the remaining kids be easily dealt with? Die. Over 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates were enough to unleash their might all at once. Pa. The barrage of attacks continued, every single attack fierce and domineering. Ling Han was hit endlessly. So what if he had the indestructible celestial king physique? Very soon, he had become completely bloody. In fact, not even his shape could be distinguished any longer. Pure power of regulation could no longer wound him, but all pseudo-heavenly venerates had been tempered by that unique power of the realm. In terms of quality, this was comparable to the fundamental power of the Genesis world, so their destructive power was incredibly frightening. Hence, when around 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates attacked at the same time, that really was instantly fatal. Ling Han was beaten horribly, his blood and flesh gone in an instant. His bones were also cracked and broken, as if he was made from paper. Ha ha ha. Desolate Moon laughed loudly. He had finally gotten his revenge. Just how many years had he borne this hatred for? Pang. Broken bones were endlessly flying from Ling Han, and he was very quickly only left with his head. The final blow. A hint of cruelty flashed through Desolate Moon's eyes. To kill a super freak, personally, gave him great pleasure. Boom! A pseudo-heavenly venerate was the first to land a hit. His fist landed on the skull, yet a golden light surged out, turning into a screen that blocked this blow from him. What on earth is going on? Desolate Moon gaped wide. Could it be that Ling Han could still turn the situation around when he was already in such dire straits? In front of his eyes that were filled with absolute disbelief, golden light surged continuously from Ling Han's skull, forming his body, and when the golden light solidified, it formed his bones one after another. They were all formed from incredibly mysterious seals. Blood and flesh rapidly regrew on Ling Han's face, and his black hair grew out again, reaching his waist. His hair was still flickering with a crystalline luster. Ling Han broke into a grin. Thanks. Indestructible divine metal physique, success. Chapter 2709 All Killed. 2709 All Killed. In only an instant, all of Ling Han's injuries were healed. Indestructible divine metal physique was not only as tough as divine metal, it also had the indestructible trait of divine metal, having extremely strong recovery ability. Desolate Moon looked at Ling Han in shock. He was about to lose his mind. How could anyone have this kind of recovery ability? This was too terrifying, wasn't it? Then, he gritted his teeth. Even if you have recovered, so what? With so many pseudo-heavenly venerates here, just how many times will you be able to recover? Once is enough, Ling Han stated calmly. He waved the divine demon sword, and began his counterattack. Pung, pung, pung. The pseudo-heavenly venerate's battle prowess was still great, blasting him in all directions, but he did not bleed this time. Instead, grooves appeared on his body one after another. A pseudo-heavenly venerate would definitely only produce a groove should he blast divine metal. The depth of the groove would depend on the amount of force. But if they really wanted to damage divine metal, they could only use the fundamental power of the Genesis world. In other words, it would at least have to be the attack of a first-tier heavenly venerate to be capable of damaging divine metal. Ling Han only shook his body, and those grooves on his body immediately became even again. He broke into a grin. So what if there were around 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates? Unless the number of pseudo-heavenly venerates had reached a maximum limit that could turn him into a meat patty with a single strike, surpassing the tough level of divine metal. In that case, he definitely would die. But 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates? It wasn't enough. It was time for him to counterattack. With a battle cry, Ling Han swept out with the divine demon sword. There was nothing it could not destroy, at least, it was not something that could be matched by the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Pooh! A pseudo-heavenly venerate died immediately. And Ling Han also paid a price for it. Having over 100 pseudo-heavenly venerates attack him caused a great many grooves to appear on his body, but with the recovery of his physique, they rapidly healed. Ling Han laughed loudly, and charged out again. Pooh, pu, pu. One strike after another, and he killed pseudo-heavenly venerates like he was slicing grass. Strictly speaking, these pseudo-heavenly venerates were only puppets, so how high could their battle prowess be? Desolate Moon commanded them from the sidelines, but he could only adjust their military formation on a wider scale, establishing their tactics. How could he possibly micromanage every single attack? Moreover, battle would change in an instant. These were pseudo-heavenly venerates fighting, but he himself was only a ninth heaven celestial king, so how could he possibly catch up with them? One after another, the pseudo-heavenly venerates collapsed, and the number very soon surpassed 50. Desolate Moon was panicking. From the look of things, it would not be too long before Ling Han eliminated all these pseudo-heavenly venerates. Just what kind of freak was this? Amu and the others were also dumbfounded as well, their eyes staring blankly. They could not believe this at all. A ninth heaven celestial king being capable of having pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess was already inconceivable enough, breaking the iron rules of cultivation. But Ling Han was even more domineering now. In his hands, pseudo-heavenly venerates were just like weeds that could be cut at any time. Was this really a person who was at the same cultivation level as them? How could Ling Han be so strong? It should be known that they, too, were super freaks that had evolution index reaching 12, so why was the gap between them so wide? This actually was not because they were not freakish enough, but rather that they were not as lucky as Ling Han. If they, too, could be tempered by void particle energy now, and also had a heavenly venerate tool, they probably would not be too inferior to Ling Han. And from this, it was evident that once Ling Han truly advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, or became a second-tier heavenly venerate, his advantage would disappear completely. All of them would have been tempered by the fundamental power of the Genesis world, or would have grasped one of the 6 fundamental powers of the Genesis world, aside from that unique power of the Flaming Frost realm. Then, there would be absolutely no difference among them. Ultimately, the most important deciding factor would be their individual ability. This thought floated through Ling Han's mind, but he exercised no mercy at all when he attacked. Very quickly, another dozen pseudo-heavenly venerates collapsed. And the more pseudo-heavenly venerates that collapsed, the fewer the attacks he had to sustain. Naturally, fewer injuries would then be inflicted on him, and these injuries would be lighter. Desolate Moon gritted his teeth, and turned to flee. If he still stayed, it would be his turn to be eliminated when Ling Han took out all the pseudo-heavenly venerates on the scene. Desolate Moon was only a 9th heaven celestial king, how could he oppose a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Yet he had forgotten that Ling Han was actually a 9th heaven celestial king as well. The problem here was there anyone who would still consider Ling Han a 9th heaven celestial king? Ling Han laughed loudly. With a burst of force, Peng, he streaked out. Though there were a great many pseudo-heavenly venerates trying to stop him, Ling Han ignored them completely. Underneath the mad barrage of several dozen attacks, he had already charged out, heading directly for Desolate Moon. Desolate Moon turned to take a look, and his face involuntarily became livid. There were still 40+ pseudo-heavenly venerates now, and they actually couldn't even stop Ling Han. This was natural. With a precious tool cutting a path for him, how could they block him? Ling Han stretched out a hand to grab Desolate Moon. You can't die so easily. I will capture and drag you back to the Martial Academy, in honor of Xiaofan. Don't underestimate me. Desolate Moon humphed, and sent a spiritual attack towards Ling Han. Yet Ling Han was completely unaffected. The hand that he had stretched out was steady, without the slightest sliver of a tremor. Previously, he only had to hide himself in the celestial guest residence, and would not be affected by the black chi. In other words, divine metal could effectively cut off these spiritual attacks. Then, now that he had successfully cultivated the indestructible divine metal physique, how could it be that he would not have this kind of immunity? His palm descended. There was absolutely no way Desolate Moon could dodge this. How could a 9th heaven celestial king possibly be any match for pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess? Ling Han captured Desolate Moon, and sealed off the latter's cultivation level before he threw him into a spatial god tool. Ling Han feared that Desolate Moon would be able to exude black chi, and contaminate the women, so he naturally could not send him into the celestial guest residence. Once Desolate Moon vanished, the remaining pseudo-heavenly venerates immediately became puzzled. Their master was gone, and they were like kites which had their lines cut, left with only the most primitive instincts of slaughter and violence. Ling Han drew the divine demon sword once more. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Sword light blazed hotly, and the remaining pseudo-heavenly venerates very quickly all collapsed as well. Only then did he withdraw his sword, and strode towards the canyon. Amu and the others were all gaping in shock, their eyes wide. They could only stare at Ling Han in astonishment. They had completely no idea what to say. Was he really a 9th heaven celestial king, just like them? What is it? Ling Han asked smilingly. I am more stunned, and am still trying my best to digest my shock, Amu answered. These were honest words, but it could also be seen how open-minded he was. Otherwise, there was absolutely no way he could say these words now. Everyone nodded. There should be no preceding 9th heaven celestial king like this. Brother Ling, you asked for the Crimson Inferno Divine Flame Stone just now, was it to cultivate the final stage of your secret technique? Lu Zian asked, her beautiful eyes sparkling. She herself was a freak whose evolution index had reached 12, and it was destined that she would become a heavenly venerate one day. There was already no one that was worthy of her admiration, yet now she suddenly felt just how insignificant she was. Ling Han was a true freak, he alone was 100 times more amazing than all of them added together. She felt her heart beat fiercely, her cheeks dyed red. Some string in her heart seemed to have been strummed. Ling Han nodded. They had already seen this, so there was no meaning in denying it any further. Moreover, when one had reached the heights that he had, there was no need to hide a matter like having cultivated a heavenly venerate technique. As long as a heavenly venerate did not appear, he feared no one. Should we wait here now or return immediately? Amu asked. They would definitely not be able to catch up to Du Shi, so why wouldn't they just wait here for the Heavenly Venerate from the Martial Academy to arrive? By then, it would be fine for them to just travel with him back to the Martial Academy, and before that, they could also continue their cultivation here. Chapter 2710, 2710 Chapter 2712 Ma Feng returns. 2710 Chapter 2712 Ma Feng returns. Most of them would still continue cultivating here. After all, their goal was the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, and they hadn't succeeded yet, had they? Besides, after being so stimulated by Ling Han, they wanted to advance to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier even more. Actually, Ling Han did not intend to stay here any longer. He had already advanced to the 9th heaven, and cultivated the indestructible divine metal physique. He didn't need any comprehension to become a pseudo-heavenly venerate, he just needed to raise his cultivation level to the peak of the 9th heaven. Then, he would be able to directly charge towards becoming first-tier heavenly venerate. All he needed was simply time, not a dangerous environment. Furthermore, to Ling Han, this place could no longer be considered a dangerous place. He left, first to meet up with Wally and the large black dog, and then made his way back to the Martial Academy. However, this time he had indeed miscalculated. As the Martial Academy dispatched a second-tier heavenly venerate, it only took a few days for him to arrive at Burst Cloud Volcano, and when he learned that the crisis had been resolved, he returned to the Martial Academy at a much faster pace than Ling Han. Had Ling Han known earlier, he would have taken the opportunity to hitch a ride. Ling Han didn't mind either way, though. To him, a few years was not much different from a few days. He handed Desolate Moon over to the Martial Academy. Naturally, there would be someone to extract all the information from him regarding hysteria, and once everything was extracted, this kind of traitor would be executed. However, the second-tier heavenly venerate did not publicize Ling Han's battle achievements. A big shot like him naturally disdained to do so. Upon AMU and the others' return, news of it would naturally spread. He just allowed Ling Han to record a huge merit, and even gave Ling Han a death exemption gold medal, which would allow him to break the rules of the Martial Academy just once. In fact, Ling Han didn't care too much, for he already possessed the strength of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Once awarded the title of heavenly venerate, he would then be free from the constraints of regulations and be detached from the world. Ling Han stayed in the Martial Academy for a few days. Naturally, he would have matters to discuss with Yen Xianlu and the others. He also went to see Ji Wuming and Hua Ferong. After so many years had passed, these two naturally made great progress, but he had already put a very wide gap between them and himself. However, in this great world, the pseudo-heavenly venerate tier was just the beginning, whereas 7th-tier heavenly venerate was the real end goal. After staying for another 2 days, Ling Han intended to leave. First, he needed to make a trip to the Lin clan, and pick up the Empress before heading to the realm battlefield. As for whether the Rain Emperor would be going or not, that would depend on his own desire. Pang! He hadn't set off yet when the door was forcibly smashed open. Ling Han, get out! A loud voice roared. Ling Han was surprised. Ever since he went on a killing spree and slaughtered many 9th heaven celestial kings, everyone in the Martial Academy would address him as Senior Brother Ling whenever they saw him. Why would there be someone who would dare cause trouble at his doorstep? He went out, only to see a young man standing at the door with a menacing look. It was Ma Yuhai. Ling Han was surprised. Was this guy on drugs that he would dare come to provoke him? Ling Han couldn't help feeling amused. He slowly walked out, and said, Ma Yuhai, haven't you learned your lesson yet? Ma Yuhai humphed. Ling Han, don't think of yourself as someone so impressive. Today, I will teach you how to properly behave. Ling Han's eyes sharpened. Just based on Ma Yuhai's attitude towards him, even if he was to beat him half to death, it would be guaranteed that the Martial Academy also wouldn't pursue the matter. A heavenly venerate couldn't be humiliated. Ma Yuhai was immediately startled, and quickly took 3 steps back, saying, "I am warning you, don't act recklessly, as my father has returned from realm battlefield." Ling Han gave an "oh," it was no wonder then. Ma Yuhai's father, Ma Feng, was a pseudo-heavenly venerate. With the support of such an elite, Ma Yuhai would naturally have no further reservations. Ling Han shook his head. "So that being the case, you think you can provoke me?" "Wrong." Ma Yuhai pointed at Ling Han. "I'm giving you a chance. If you obediently apologize to me and let me beat you up, I will not mention anything regarding our dispute. Otherwise, you leave me no choice but to ask my father to interfere." When it came to the last sentence, his tone was full of threat. Ling Han was indeed impressive. He had killed 9th heaven celestial kings with his sword, and even caused a pseudo-heavenly venerate to shed blood. However, He Yufeng was just a newly advanced pseudo-heavenly venerate. In terms of strength, could he be compared with Ma Feng, a veteran elite who had been fighting in the realm battlefield for countless years? Moreover, it wasn't that He Yufeng couldn't defeat Ling Han, but it was because Ling Han had used a powerful move which caused him to suffer a slight injury. His own strength actually surpassed Ling Han's by many fold. Thus, he was definitely able to make Ling Han submit. Had it not been for the fact that there was the Lin clan supporting Ling Han, and that his own father was merely a pseudo-heavenly venerate, Ma Yuhai would really like to kill Ling Han. Ling Han chuckled, but nevertheless slapped him across the face. Ma Yuhai was immediately sent flying. For the sake of Ma Feng's many years of fighting courageously in the realm battlefield, Ling Han did not deliver a killing strike, leaving an heir for the Ma clan. Of course, if Ma Yuhai still didn't know any better, then Ling Han would no longer be merciful. Back then, when Ma Yuhai hired Qin Shuang to kill him, it was already enough for him to be given a death sentence. Within half a day, a message was released. Ma Feng made an announcement, demanding that Ling Han kneel all the way to Ma Yuhai's place by the end of today, or he would make his move. All of a sudden, the entire martial academy was shell-shocked. A pseudo-heavenly venerate was going to deal with Ling Han. Ling Han should yield. That's right. When the pseudo-heavenly venerate makes a move, it's impossible to block his attack. After all, this isn't limited by an agreement of 10 moves as it was with He Yufeng. Who will support Ling Han this time? As long as it doesn't cause any fatality, the martial academy will not stop a pseudo-heavenly venerate either. They have to give him some face as well. Not necessarily. Haven't you heard that Ling Han has defeated a pseudo-heavenly venerate of the Yuan clan, so even if he is to face Lord Ma Feng, he might not necessarily be at a disadvantage? You actually believe such rumors? That's right. Ling Han is only at the 8th heaven, how could he possibly rival the pseudo-heavenly venerate? Everyone had a completely pessimistic view of Ling Han's prospects. Even if there were 1 or 2 voices of opposition, they would still be drowned out instantly. Naturally, Ling Han had heard about it, and shook his head. Ma Feng really doted on his son. It was obviously impossible for him to go and apologize to Ma Yuhai, he simply ignored it completely. One day had passed, and the sun still rose. "Ling Han, come out." A deep voice sounded from outside, full of intimidation. Ling Han was just meditating and cultivating. He was still far from reaching the peak of the 9th heaven, so there was huge room for improvement in his strength. Every moment was very precious to him. Hearing the voice, Ling Han stood up and came to the door. He saw a middle-aged man standing about 3 meters away from the door. He was wearing black battle armor, which appeared battered with many broken parts. However, one shouldn't underestimate this battle armor, as it was made of divine metal. Battle armor made with divine metal had so many broken parts. What kind of battles did this person have to go through? He was Ma Feng, who had just returned from the realm battlefield. The battles there would naturally be bloody. Ling Han cupped his fists in greeting. So it's brother Ma. Ma Feng instantly raised a brow. How dared a mere ninth heaven celestial king treat him as an equal? It seemed that his son did not deceive him, and this brat was indeed extremely arrogant. Young man, don't be so condescending just because you think you have some talent. Ma Feng said lightly. I will not take it too far, and will simply break both your hands and feet, which you will not be recovering from for 100 million years, so you'd better reflect upon the error of your ways. Chapter 2711, 2711 Killed with a Single Strike. 2711 Killed with a Single Strike. Originally, Ling Han would have been able to quickly recover even if all his limbs were broken, but since Ma Feng was saying this, he was clearly certain he could do this. As long as a sliver of martial intent was left behind and did not disperse, even the slightest of injuries could not possibly recover. In the martial academy, even Ma Feng did not dare to do as he liked and just kill anyone. After all, he, too, was only a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Ling Han frowned. Brother Ma, I have always kept to my own principles. Without others coming to trifle with me, I would not go to cause trouble for others either. Thus, do not just listen to the one-sided story of your son. Ma Feng sneered. Just for your disrespectful attitude towards me, I will teach you a lesson as well. Too arrogant, a mere celestial king actually dared to treat a pseudo-heavenly venerate like they were equals. At this time, there were a considerable number of people rushing their way here from various mountains. They had long since been anticipating this moment. Since Ling Han did not go to see Ma Yuhai, there would definitely be some action from Ma Feng. Hence, once Ma Feng appeared, everyone quickly made their way here. Ma Yuhai had also come, a smirk at the corners of his lips. Ling Han actually dared to insult him repeatedly. Today, he would make Ling Han have a taste of how it felt to be humiliated. However, now that things had come so far, he naturally had no delusions that he could change the mind of the young miss from the Wang clan. Ling Han looked at Ma Feng. It could be claimed that he had met a considerable number of pseudo-heavenly venerates, and had also killed no small number of them. However, compared with Ma Feng, aside from Lin Piaoxue, there was no one that had any hope of catching up to him. After all, He Yufeng and Yun Haoyang had only just broken through, while the Azure Ghost Celestial King and the others had been string puppets that were formed through a forceful power boost. Which of them could compare to Ma Feng? This was a true pseudo-heavenly venerate. Brother Ma, I respect you for how you've battled so many years in the realm battlefield. This is my last word of advice, this matter ends here. Ling Han stated calmly. Even if Ma Feng's strength far surpassed that of He Yufeng and Yun Haoyang, so what? Ling Han's present battle prowess, added with the divine demon sword, was already enough to allow him to have no fear of any pseudo-heavenly venerate. How could he possibly tolerate such great humiliation? Ma Feng showed a hint of disdain. A celestial king dared to act arrogant in front of him and spout a threat. Just how far did he overestimate himself? He stated evenly, my merits and sacrifices are not what you can understand at all. Kneel, he suddenly exclaimed loudly, his voice rumbling violently, and penetrating straight to the soul. Pa. Ling Han did not kneel, but there were at least a dozen people in the surroundings that fell to their knees. None of these people did not feel apprehensive. It should be known that for better or worse, they were still monarch tiers, yet they could not resist even the mere exclamation from a pseudo-heavenly venerate. And those who did not kneel had pale faces. The power of heavenly venerable tier had surpassed regulations, and was extremely terrifying. Only Ling Han looked like he was completely unaffected. He crossed his arms behind his back, and asked smilingly, Brother Ma, do you basically just depend on shouting for your battles? This was sarcasm. Immediately, Ma Feng looked furious, and killing intent was also flashing in his gaze. However, he had not even spoken yet, and Ma Yuhai had already jumped out. Ling Han, you dare to be rude to my father? You should know this, my father has been battling with hysteria in the realm battlefield. Without the sacrifice and blood of my father, what right would you have to stand here and speak? When they heard these words, quite a number of people were nodding inwardly. At present it was only that the heavenly venerates did not appear, not that there were no heavenly venerates. It was just that they were all fighting hysteria in the realm battlefield. This was a very great sacrifice worthy of respect. You dare disrespect the heroes of the realm battlefield, you deserve to die 10,000 times over. Ma Yuhai continued. Ling Han smirked. That's right. Disrespect towards someone who has done a great merit should kill you 10,000 times over. Xiao. He moved, and grabbed out at Ma Yuhai. How dare you? In front of me, you still dare to act insolent? Ma Feng also moved, delivering a palm strike at Ling Han. This brat had to have devoured the courage of an overlord, he actually dared to touch his son right in front of him. Was he an idiot? Ling Han clenched a fist, and exchanged a blow with Ma Feng. Pang! The two of them exchanged a blow, and Ling Han was instantly sent flying. However, Ma Feng's feet also moved, taking 7 steps backwards. Still, Ling Han also used the momentum from being sent flying to speed up and bounce towards Ma Yuhai. Ling Han stretched out a hand and pressed down. How could Ma Yuhai be able to resist? Immediately, he fell into Ling Han's grasp. The moment he moved, Ling Han's strength was no longer reserved, and 9 ribbons of iridescent light flashed around him. A 9th heaven celestial king. Heavens, when he was fighting with He Yufeng, he was still in the 8th heaven. Just how many years has passed? He has already advanced to the 9th heaven? All the disciples were dumbfounded and gaping. All of them were extraordinarily talented in cultivation, but faced with Ling Han's rate of cultivation, aside from astonishment, they could only feel more astonishment. Ma Feng's expression was even uglier. A pseudo-heavenly venerate had already interfered, yet was still unable to stop Ling Han from committing a crime, and his son had fallen into the latter's hands. He was both furious and anxious. He wanted nothing more than to blast Ling Han into bits, but was still wary as his son was still in Ling Han's hold, and dared not make any rash moves. Let him go, he demanded menacingly. Ling Han shook his head. Ma Feng, though I very much wish to respect you, I can only see your selfishness and arrogance. Just how much contribution do you think you have made? You are but a mere pseudo-heavenly venerate, in the realm battlefield, you are only a minor character. You say that hysteria could cause even greater damage without you? Don't think too highly of yourself. Why don't you take a look at your son, and see what he has done? Ling Han paused, and then continued, previously, your son paid the price of a heavenly venerate pill to hire a 9th heaven celestial king to kill me. I would like to count it out for you then. What punishment would this attempt to kill a disciple of the martial academy be? Absolute nonsense. Ma Feng flicked his sleeves. He naturally would deny this completely. Otherwise, if the martial academy pursued the matter, this crime would be very great. Ling Han picked up Ma Yuhai. Will you admit to your crime? You are speaking nonsense. Ma Yuhai hurriedly shook his head. How could it be possible that he would admit to this? Furthermore, inside the martial academy, in front of his father, would Ling Han dare to use force to exert a confession from him? Not admitting? Ling Han smiled, but his smile was filled with killing intent. A chill rose in Ma Yuhai's heart, but he immediately raised his head high again. Since you are so determined to pin me with a crime, how am I supposed to admit to it? To treat a disciple of the martial academy like this, what do you regard the rules of the martial academy as? Do you really think that you are not bound by any rules and can do whatever you like? He smirked coldly. With this heavy sentence laid down on him, and with his father's adding fuel to the fire, it was guaranteed that Ling Han would not be able to escape, and would have to pay a very heavy price for his deeds. Force me, with so many people watching, the more force you are using, the worse your punishment from the Martial Academy will be in future. Meanwhile, Ma Feng smiled. He felt very gratified at how courageous his son was. He was still firm and unyielding despite falling into enemy hands. As expected of his good son. The others were also watching Ling Han. Just how was he going to settle this? Ling Han, whatever you can think of, just do it. If I even wrinkle my brow, you can call me grandson. Ma Yuhai became even more arrogant. I shall oblige then. Ling Han smiled faintly. He struck down with his right hand, and part of Ma Yuhai's head immediately inverted to become mush. Ma Yuhai looked blankly at Ling Han. He had never imagined that Ling Han would actually deliver a fatal strike against him. How did he dare? This was the Martial Academy, and his father was even standing guard on the sidelines. He had not even finished the thought when he collapsed dispiritedly onto the ground. His mind had been pierced, so his only fate was naturally death. Everyone was dumbfounded. They, like Ma Yuhai, were also stunned by how Ling Han dared to strike. The only difference was that they could continue to feel shocked, but Ma Yuhai was already dead. Chapter 2712, 2712 Ling Han has done a great merit. 2712 Ling Han has done a great merit. No. Ma Feng released a roar of fury, his black locks fluttering wildly. He looked like a lion that was raging. Flames of fury were spitting from his eyes. He only had one son, and this son was also very outstanding. It was not impossible that his son would be able to surpass himself in the future. Yet, his son had been killed right in front of him. He wanted to kill. He wanted to kill. He wanted to kill. Don't think you're going to die so easily. I will make you suffer an epoch's worth of torture before I finally crush you to bits. Ma Feng roared furiously. He attacked in his anger, wanting to take Ling Han down. Hee, in your dreams. Ling Han stepped forwards without fear. Boom. 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 The two elites with pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess exchanged blows, and this instantly caused excessive destruction. Let's take this battle into the skies. Ling Han shot up into the skies first. You can't escape. Ma Feng hurriedly set off in pursuit. When they were in the air, the two great elites continued to exchange blows. This time, they no longer had to hold anything back, and could release all the restrictions on them, battling to their heart's content. However, the longer they battled, the more shocked the people beneath them were. Ling Han was only a 9th heaven celestial king. He can already match a pseudo-heavenly venerate when he is only a 9th heaven celestial king. Heavens, this is really unbelievable. Just how has he been cultivating? Throughout the ages, he should be the strongest 9th heaven there ever was. But there were some that were rejoicing in Ling Han's misfortune. Filled with jealousy, they said, no matter how freakish he is, so what? Killing a disciple of the Martial Academy is a death sentence. Best case scenario, he would have to be thrown into the Celestial King graveyard, and stay there till he dies of old age. Maybe not. With how freakish Ling Han is, who knows, he might be able to convince the Martial Academy to be lenient, someone else said. I feel that Ling Han is too rash. Why wouldn't he wait? Once he left the Martial Academy, or in fact, as long as he killed him outside the Martial Academy, there would be no need to worry about this problem. That's right. Committing murder in the Martial Academy, and right in front of Ma Feng at that. This would be too hard for him to get out of. Everyone was discussing spiritedly, while the battle in the skies was also incredibly intense. Pang, pang, pang. A series of intense exchanges later, Ling Han had been struck a consecutive 17 times, and his whole person had also been sent flying. It had to be admitted that Ma Feng, as a veteran pseudo-heavenly veneratium that had battled countless years in the realm battlefield that truly had incomparable battle prowess. Even if you added He Yufeng and Yun Haoyang together, he would still be 10 times stronger than them. However, when Ling Han steadied himself, over a dozen grooves had appeared on him, but they were like the grooves that were created when a child tried to punch holes in dough. They merely collapsed inward, and did not break at all. Naturally, there wouldn't be a drop of blood seeping out. And it was practically just an instant before these grooves were filled up by themselves, rapidly recovering. At first, Ma Feng had been extremely certain, but after seeing this scene, his eyes almost bulged out in shock. What kind of monstrous physique was this? Those watching them from below were also stunned. Was this a second Heavenborn? Ling Han smiled faintly. It is not that easy to kill me. Everyone was speechless. This was no longer a matter of whether it was easy or difficult, but rather if it was really possible to kill him. Ma Feng took a deep breath. His son's body hadn't even cooled completely, and the enemy who had killed his son was standing right in front of him. How could he stop at this moment? I don't believe that you can maintain this state forever. He thought that this was Ling Han having used some kind of secret technique. It definitely could not be maintained constantly. Just try it then. Ling Han grinned. Ma Feng did not say anything else, and charged towards him again. Pang, pang, pang. The two of them battled fiercely. Indeed, Ma Feng was strong, and had suppressed Ling Han, continuously landing attacks on him, but faced with that monstrous defense of Ling Han, he had absolutely no way to deal with it. If Ling Han's strength wasn't that great, he could suppress Ling Han first, and then use his superior power, added with regulations, to slowly refine him. Even divine metal could not hold up against that. The problem here was that Ling Han's battle prowess had also reached the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Furthermore, he was very strong at that, and this made Ma Feng extremely exasperated. What chance would he have to slowly refine Ling Han? Moreover, Ling Han had not drawn the divine demon sword yet. Otherwise, once the heavenly venerate tool released its might, it would be a different tale of who would be at the advantage, and who would be at the disadvantage. Everyone watching from below was already numb with shock. They could only look at the skies dumbly, stunned by how strong Ling Han's battle prowess and recovery ability could be. 1 day, 2 days, and 3 days passed, yet the battle between the two great elites still did not end. That's about enough. A voice rang out calmly, yet bore supreme authority. The heavenly venerate that was stationed at the martial academy had spoken. Ma Feng stopped his attack, and called out, "Lord Universe Dragon, this boy has publicly killed his fellow disciple in the martial academy. Please act, my lord. Capture him, and leave his punishment to me." A second-tier heavenly venerate had spoken, so he dared not ignore these words. To Ma Feng, this was actually very embarrassing. A great, dignified pseudo-heavenly venerate was actually unable to take down a 9th heaven celestial king, and he actually needed someone to help him? This would make others roar in laughter. But who asked Ling Han to kill his son? There was absolutely no way Ma Feng could allow Ling Han to leave alive. Beneath them, everyone was also shaking their head and sighing. It should be known that the martial academy had its rules. Even if Ling Han was incredibly freakish, only his life would be spared, at best. He would still be sent to the Celestial King graveyard. It was fine even if it was destroyed, as it could be rebuilt. Who asked Ling Han to kill Ma Yuhai? Furthermore, it was right in the martial academy, and right in full public at that. There was definitely no way for Ling Han out of this. Ling Han did not speak, and merely descended from the skies. Universe Dragon Heavenly Venerate did not speak either, and maintained his silence. Ma Feng became frantic. What was going on here? Could it be that the Heavenly Venerate was going to cover for Ling Han? He hurriedly exclaimed, "My lord, I have fought bloody battles in the realm battlefield, and who knows how many times I have sustained heavy injury, and there were even times when I was close to death. Yet now, my son was killed right in front of me. If this matter was known to others, wouldn't it bitterly disappoint all those who are fighting fiercely at the front lines? This was an attempt to garner pity, but at the same, it was also a threat. If justice could not be done in this matter, what mood would those elites that were still battling furiously, bathed in blood, have to continue fighting? Ma Feng, you have indeed sweated and bled for the Genesis world, the universe dragon Heavenly Venerate said. However, that is all. Ling Han has done a great merit for the Genesis world. Your son insulted him, and this is a great wrong, a serious crime. Even though Ling Han killed your son now, his merit has still far surpassed the crime that he has committed. I will not make a move on him, and it will be the same for other Heavenly Venerates as well. What? Hearing these words from the universe dragon Heavenly Venerate, everyone was stunned. Exactly what great merit had Ling Han done that he would actually be granted such favorable treatment? He could still go unpunished despite having killed the son of a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate? This was natural. Ling Han had dealt with tens of thousands of pseudo-Heavenly Venerates. How could that be something that a single Ma Feng could compare to? However, this news had not spread out yet. Otherwise, the whole martial academy would be singing Ling Han's praises. I don't believe it. No way. After a moment of surprise, Ma Feng immediately shouted loudly, his head held high. What great merit would a mere ninth heaven celestial king be able to achieve? Even if he has pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess, so what? Just how many more great merits would he have done than I? It should be known that I have been battling at the realm battlefield for several 100 billion years. Whether you believe it or otherwise has nothing to do with me. If you still do not stop, I will take you down, and throw you out of the martial academy. The voice of the universe dragon Heavenly Venerate rang out. He still did not show himself, but his tone was filled with dominance. So what if it was a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate? In front of a true Heavenly Venerate, they were worth even less than nothing. Chapter 2713, 2713 Complete Discrimination. 2713 Complete Discrimination. Hearing these words from the universe dragon Heavenly Venerate, everyone was dumbfounded. Just what kind of discrimination was this? Everyone was incredibly curious. What astonishing feat had Ling Han actually done that he would be granted this kind of treatment? They truly could not imagine it, because no matter what, Ling Han possessed only pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Ma Feng shouted loudly. The veins on his face were popping in anger. There had to some kind of inside story here, this was deliberate discrimination. So noisy. Universe dragon Heavenly Venerate humphed. Boom! A giant hand suddenly descended from the skies, and grabbed out at Ma Feng. He was a second-tier Heavenly Venerate, and explaining to a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate was already giving the latter enough face. This mainly was out of consideration for Ma Feng's grief over losing his son and the fact that he had been battling fiercely with the troops of Hysteria. And in terms of contributions, would he, a second-tier Heavenly Venerate, have contributed less than Ma Feng? Without becoming a true Heavenly Venerate, he would ultimately only be cannon fodder. Ma Feng could not resist, and was easily grabbed by this giant hand. Then, he was thrown out of the martial academy with a wave, and all traces of him were gone in an instant. Give him a proper burial. Dismissed, the universe dragon Heavenly Venerate stated, and no further sound was heard. This. Everyone was gaping. As they saw it, there would have definitely been no way that Ling Han could get out of this, but this calamity actually ended so easily? Ling Han merely smiled calmly, turned around, and returned inside. This incident naturally caused a massive tsunami in the martial academy, and also scared another second-generation young master half to death, and that was Zhuo Kai. His father would also be taking his turn to return from the realm battlefield and rest. He also had plans to use his father to bully Ling Han. Thankfully, he hadn't. He patted his chest continuously in lingering fear. Otherwise, the person that would be lying dead would have been him. Furthermore, Ling Han would escape punishment. If that really happened, he would not be able to close his eyes even in death. To say the least, he was still not a real disciple of the martial academy, so even if he died, that would be a worthless death. After Ling Han dealt with all the trifling matters, he and the large black dog set off to the Lin clan. Wally, however, had no interest in going to the realm battlefield. He had always advertised himself as an analytical model. Fighting and killing were not things that he should be doing. After over a dozen days' journey, they arrived once more at the Lin clan. You have actually broken through to the 9th heaven. Lin Piaoxue was still at Lin clan, and when she knew that Ling Han had returned, she especially went to meet him. She couldn't help but feel very rueful. I have also heard some of your feats. You now possess strength capable of matching the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Ling Han smiled. I have to thank your father for his kindness, as well as you, Miss Lin, for your guidance. Previously, Lin Piaoxue had kept playing the role of his sparring partner. For a pseudo-heavenly venerate to lower herself to do such a thing was a very great kindness. Lin Piaoxue also smiled. Come, let us have a spar and see just what level you have attained. The two of them rose into the air, and a clash broke out between them. Whatever ultimate moves you have, just use them freely, Lin Piaoxue said. At this moment, she was no longer the gentle daughter of a noble clan, but a female warrior of the battlefield. Ling Han held nothing back, and went all out. The two of them battled for about 2 hours before stopping. Lin Piaoxue had many compliments for him. Going by your cultivation level, you can only be considered an early-stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier in terms of body arts, but your physique has reached the late stage. This is extremely inconceivable. Furthermore, your physique is incredibly tough, and along with this kind of battle prowess, you would not have to fear even a peak-stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier elite. Ling Han naturally knew this, but he still smiled modestly. Thank you for your compliment, Miss Lin. It is all thanks to Grandpa Dog's teachings, the large black dog piped in shamelessly from the sidelines. Neither Lin Piaoxue nor Ling Han gave him any regard, and they continued their conversation. The large black dog almost went mad at this. They actually dared to ignore him. Are you going to the realm battlefield after this? Lin Piaoxue asked. Ling Han nodded. He wanted to rapidly increase his cultivation level through bloody battles and reach peak stage 9th heaven. That way, he would be able to extract void particle energy, and directly advance to become a first-tier heavenly venerate. Furthermore, this kind of first-tier heavenly venerate was definitely the strongest of his cultivation level. Others were using that unique energy of the realm, which could not be compared with void particle energy. Only after becoming a second-tier heavenly venerate would his advantage over his peers disappear. That's good. You do not have any opponents here already. If you were to cultivate alone here, the time for you to reach the peak stage would be far from sight. Lin Piaoxue nodded, and looked like she wanted to say something, but was hesitant to do so. Miss Lin, is there something else? Ling Han asked. Lin Piaoxue hesitated, and then said, though your natural talent is extraordinary, I have to remind you that the true prodigies are actually all at the realm battlefield. Ling Han nodded. He had heard Lin Piaoxue speak of this before. For example, the clansmen nurtured by the Lin clan would not be sent to the martial academy, but would rather be cultivating in their clan itself, and after attaining a certain cultivation, they would be directly sent to battle in the realm battlefield. In the world's paramount martial academy, Ling Han had seen the descendants of 3rd tier or even 4th tier heavenly venerates, but there were none from 5th tier or 6th tier heavenly venerates, what more a 7th tier heavenly venerate. The realm battlefield was a slaughterhouse, but it was also the most suitable place for one to grow and mature. The strong would prevail, while the weak would be discarded. All that survived were elites, there was no one mediocre among them. I understand, Ling Han said. Lin Piaoxue nodded. You don't understand. She paused, and then continued, do you think that circumstances like yours are considered unique? Ling Han was instantly moved, and then asked, there are others like me? Lin Piaoxue nodded slowly. Under the pressure of the threat of hysteria destroying the world, the whole Genesis world has also welcomed a great burst of talent. As far as I know, there are 2 that have possessed strength capable of matching, or even killing, a pseudo-heavenly venerate when they were in the 9th heaven. Who? Ling Han asked, feeling only curiosity and fighting spirit. He did not feel the slightest bit of jealousy. Lin Piaoxue glanced at him in admiration, and then said, one of them is named Xin Chihu, and is truly a supreme prodigy. He has taken even less time than you to reach the 9th heaven. However, his father is a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, Lord Xin Fu. Since childhood, his cultivation resources and environment were who knows how many times better than yours, so there is no need for you to take it to heart. Ling Han nodded slowly, and then asked, then what is Xin Chihu's cultivation level now? Lin Piaoxue's words were about when Xin Chihu was in the 9th heaven, and not what battle prowess he presently possessed. 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. Lin Piaoxue said solemnly, a hint of admiration in her eyes. Up till today, he has only been cultivating for 700 million years. 700 million years? A great many celestial kings might not be able to advance a single heaven in a whole epoch, but Xin Chihu had already become a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate in 700 million years. This kind of talent in cultivation was too amazing. Ling Han nodded. I hope I can spar with him one day. His eyes were bright. This kind of prodigy was definitely worth a battle. Lin Piaoxue was surprised. He is already a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate, so why do you think that you can catch up to him? But Ling Han was definitely not the type to be blindly confident. That expression of high spirits on his face caused others to involuntarily believe his words. And the other? Ling Han asked. The other, Lin Piaoxue smiled. That would be my youngest aunt, my grandfather's youngest daughter. Her name is Lin Yolian, and her freakish talent is not inferior to Xin Chihu's at all. At present, she, too, is a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. It should be known that auntie is considerably younger than even me. That was indeed freakish talent. Was this a descendant born from a 7th-tier heavenly venerate? From birth, she was already powerful, and possessed immeasurable future prospects? Ling Han's heart jolted. Suddenly, he asked a completely unrelated question. Why is your name Piaoxue? Chapter 2714, 2714 Base Camp. 2714 Base Camp. Lin Piaoxue was stunned for a moment before saying, when I was born, it happened to be snowing, so my grandfather gave me this name Yuan. A chill rose in Ling Han's heart, and he thought that although Lin Luo was a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, the latter's naming sense was comparable to his own, which was similarly haphazard. I'm going back to the realm battlefield as well. Let me know when you're done packing up, I'll take you there, Lin Piaoxue continued. Ling Han nodded, and went to see the Empress and the Rain Emperor. After so many years had passed, the 2 of them had also advanced to the peak of the 8th heaven, and they could no longer progress to the next step based on hard work alone. Therefore, even if Ling Han hadn't come, they would have gone to find Ling Han at the Martial Academy. Let's go to the realm battlefield. The 2 made the same decision very quickly. All right. Ling Han went to find Lin Piaoxue, they could leave at any time. 3 days later, Lin Piaoxue set off with them, riding the same carriage pulled by the golden ox formed of divine metal, and traversing through space all the way, but it still took them 70 years to reach their destination. Along the way, Lin Piaoxue also gave them a detailed introduction to the situation at the realm battlefield. From the perspective of the strategic situation, Hysteria still held an absolute advantage, and was gradually pushing forward the line of battle. However, with the Flaming Frost realm being so extremely vast, there was no telling how long it would take before it completely fell into enemy hands. As they got closer and closer to the realm battlefield, they found that the regulations around them became more and more chaotic. In fact, it was even difficult to sense them. This was also why only Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings could come here, because only the height of Ninth Heaven could just barely extract the regulations for battle, whereas it would be absolutely unthinkable for other Celestial Kings. However, it would be more likely to sense the unique power of the realm all the more under such circumstances, and they could take that last, most crucial step. The same was true for Heavenly Venerates. With this being the place of collision between the two realms, the fundamental power was even more active, which made it all the more easier to touch and sense. This was a dangerous place, but at the same time, it was also a sacred place for Breakthrough Sun, the premise that one could survive. The battle is very fierce. Every year, a large number of Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings will die, while the Heavenly Venerates aren't untouchable either. It is very likely that they will be killed if they meet with an encirclement, Lin Piaoxue said solemnly. The heaven and earth here was very special, with many layers, and the stronger the strength, the higher the cultivation level needed to withstand its power. Therefore, if Hysteria was to invade, the elites and the weaker ones that came would be divided according to their cultivation level and in various batches. Of course, the weakest person sent by Hysteria would also be at the level of the Ninth Heaven Celestial King. It would be impossible to be weaker than this level. To put it simply, there are 8 spatial levels in total. Pseudo-Heavenly Venerates and Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings like us are working on the first level because the first-tier Heavenly Venerate and above can't exert their full power here, they would be targeted by the realm. First-tier Heavenly Venerate is in the second spatial level, and so on. In the 8th spatial level, the 7th-tier Heavenly Venerate is overseeing things and battling against the main body of Hysteria. However, the space here is not absolute. There are many peculiarities. Although you are obviously in the first level, you may enter another space after passing through a cave, a lake, or a cloud, possibly arriving in the 3rd level, 5th level, and so on. Once you find yourself in such a situation, don't try to act tough. Run back as soon as possible, otherwise you will die, Lin Piaoxue said solemnly. This was the way of survival in the realm battlefield, precious information obtained through countless bloodshed and sacrifices. Ling Han and company nodded, while the large black dog eyes shifted quickly. If it wasn't for Heavenborn also being here, he really would want to turn around and run away. Alright, always keep yourself alert, and welcome to the realm battlefield. Lin Piaoxue opened the carriage door, and was the first to jump out. Celestial Maiden Lin. Ling Han and company were still in the carriage when they heard someone outside greet Lin Piaoxue. They also got out of the carriage, only to see that this was a huge base camp with such towering high walls that one couldn't even see the top. This was the barrier against Hysteria's troops. Every once in a while, Hysteria would gather troops to launch a fierce attack, and everyone would be defending here. After Hysteria's army was repelled, they would go out of the city to hunt and kill the remaining wandering soldiers. Of course, this was only the first spatial level, the same would be true for the other 7 levels. It was said that new barriers were being built behind them because they had discarded at least 20,000 barriers from the time the war had started until now, and were constantly retreating. One day, this place would also fall, and then they would retreat to the wall behind, and a new cycle would continue. It was just that there would be no way to retreat one day if this was the case, or in other words, when the Flaming Frost realm had lost enough territory, it would no longer be a transcendent dimension. Would it still be able to resist Hysteria? Just thinking about it would cause one to feel chills down the spine. Therefore, every inch of land had to be fought for, and they would never retreat lightly. For this reason, who knew how many people had spilled their blood here, including celestial kings, heavenly venerates, and high-tier heavenly venerates. Ling Han and company were stunned by the city wall for a brief moment before turning to look at the person who was facing Lin Piaoxue. It was a man with a slender figure and handsome features, giving other people an impression of being cultured and refined. There was not much movement of aura from his body, but when his gaze occasionally shifted, a terrifying pressure overflowed from him. A pseudo-heavenly venerate. Brother Lu, Lin Piaoxue said calmly. This person was Lu Tianxian, a son of a third-tier heavenly venerate. He was keenly interested in Lin Piaoxue, and had been pursuing her. However, whether he was pursuing Lin Piaoxue herself, the Lin clan behind her, or both was something only Lu Tianxian would know. Celestial Maiden Lin, you are finally back. Everyone misses you very much, Lu Tianxian said with undisguised admiration in his eyes. Lin Piaoxue smiled. Brother Lu, I still have some matters to attend to. I need to arrange for these people's reporting in and their accommodations. Allow me, allow me. Lu Tianxian said quickly with great enthusiasm. Lin Piaoxue obviously didn't want to spend more time with him, and couldn't stop him either, so she had no choice but to entrust him with this errand. The three of you, please follow me, Lu Tianxian said very politely. He led the way for Ling Han and the others. This city only had a wall on one side, and it was needless to say the reason, so they didn't have a procedure of entering the city. However, after walking for a while, Lu Tianxian's expression turned cold. You all can go to the Celestial Administration to report by yourselves, just keep walking straight ahead. After speaking, he turned around and left. Ling Han and the others looked at one another. This guy was indeed extremely two-faced. He showed great enthusiasm in front of Lin Piaoxue, but the moment he turned around, his attitude and expression immediately changed. It really makes people speechless. Ling Han shook his head. No wonder Miss Lin didn't fancy him, such narrow-mindedness really makes one feel disdainful of him. The Rain Emperor rubbed his fists together. He really wanted to beat the crap out of Lu Tianxian, but with his current strength, he wasn't strong enough, so it could only be considered a nice dream for now. Where is Heavenborn? Where is Heavenborn? The large black dog yelled. Originally, he would be the one who cared most about this kind of thing, but now all he cared about was Heavenborn. Ling Han nodded. Let us go to the Celestial Administration to report first, and then go find Heavenborn. Celestial Administration was the command center of each spatial layer. There were 2 first-tier heavenly venerates stationed there to oversee this place. Even if a first-tier heavenly venerate couldn't exert his full battle prowess in this place, having such a person here was in itself a deterrence. Moreover, everyone might not obey if it was any other person. There were too many prodigies here, who would obey whom? Chapter 2715, 2715 Top of the Leaderboard. 2715 Top of the Leaderboard. This place was astonishingly large, and Ling Han's group walked along the city wall for a long time before finally seeing where the Celestial Administration was located. It was a very large building, but only had 1 floor. It was huge, but the design was extremely simple. Right, this was a battlefield, not a place for pleasure, so what was the point of making it splendorous and majestic? The 4 of them went in, and someone immediately received them, registered their identity information, and arranged accommodations for them. Ling Han immediately asked about Heavenborn's whereabouts. Heavenborn? Heavenborn? The man murmured for a moment, and then he came to a sudden realization. Is that the guy who was born with a physique of divine metal? TSK, that guy is incredible. He has only been here for 10 million years, and yet he has already become a 9th heaven celestial king. He can even be compared with a pseudo-heavenly venerate, truly amazing. Ling Han knew that a highly talented person like Heavenborn would cause a sensation wherever he went, so finding out Heavenborn's whereabouts should be easy. Sure enough, the man continued, Heavenborn should have gone out of the city to hunt and kill the surviving members of Hysteria's army after they besieged the city. Thank you. Ling Han nodded towards that person. The four of them went back to their residence. Here, everyone would be provided with a residence. In addition, there were strict restrictions that absolutely forbade infighting. Should there be any personal grievances, the parties were required to leave here and take the fight outside. Here, everyone was considered as one body, with just one goal, and that was to fight Hysteria. Of course, infighting was forbidden, but it did not prohibit sparring between cultivators, which helped to improve one's cultivation level, and naturally would not be prohibited. Not long after Ling Han's group settled down, the large black dog couldn't help urging, hurry up and find Heavenborn. Ling Han shook his head. How can we find him? Once out of the city, with the world being so vast, there was no telling where Heavenborn could have gone. Even if Wally was brought here, he would be completely at the end of his wits. When Heavenborn comes back, we will keep an eye on him. Whether it's striking a staggering blow in the middle of the night or waiting for him to leave the city, there's always a chance to strike, Ling Han said. Only then did the large black dog restrain himself, he was indeed too impatient. Aside from Heavenborn, Ling Han also wanted to find He Yufeng, who had taken advantage of his position to bully him previously. Now that he also possessed the battle prowess of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, he wanted to see who would be more powerful between the two of them. In the end, He Yufeng had also gone out of the city. This was a regular pattern. Now the time was to hunt them down, and after a while, when Hysteria's army launched an attack, everyone would retreat to stay behind the wall, otherwise they themselves would become lone soldiers and be destroyed instantly under the attack of the army. And the same cycle would repeat itself. It had always been like this. In order not to let life be too boring, introducing a mechanism for competition was obviously a good idea. Hence, there was a leaderboard of battle merits based on the number and quality of kills made against the enemy. Amongst Hysteria's army here, there were also those at the 9th heaven and pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. That being the case, if one was to kill any of them, one's battle merit would naturally be different. This also made it impossible for 9th heaven celestial kings to be on the leaderboard. The leaderboard was the stage for the pseudo-heavenly venerates competition of strength. Since Ling Han was also idle, he went to take a look. The leaderboard was located outside the celestial administration, set up upon two huge stone tablets, which would only be updated every 1,000 years. The last update was 999 years ago, that was to say, the leaderboard would be updated at any time, perhaps even tomorrow. Why were there two ranking lists? One was the general list, which would add up the total battle merits throughout history, while the other was the current list. For example, if some pseudo-heavenly venerate advanced to become a heavenly venerate, they would appear on the second spatial level, and their names would be removed from the current list. Ling Han looked at the general list first. These were the strongest pseudo-heavenly venerates since ancient times. A total of 1,000 people had been selected. Seeing that there were quite a lot of people, it was probably to give more people a sense of participation. Xin Chihu. Ling Han quickly found Xin Chihu's name in the 964th place, along with a brief summary of his battle merits. In 13,540,000 years, having killed 3,567 pseudo-heavenly venerates and 48,553 ninth heaven celestial kings. What surprised Ling Han was that Xin Chihu took such a short time to advance to the pseudo-heavenly venerate tier, only about 10 million years. He had made his way onto the list in just over 10 million years. Looking at the two people above and below him, respectively, they had fought bloody battles for billions of years. It should be known that being on the list meant that the person had an amazing aptitude, and would definitely become a heavenly venerate. Wasn't this kind of comparison amazing? No wonder he was so highly respected by Lin Piaoxue. Ling Han scanned again, and saw Lin Yulian's name. She was ranked 982nd, and her summary was 12,240,000 years, having killed 2,966 pseudo-heavenly venerates and 50,084 ninth heaven celestial kings. Similarly amazing. However, the general list was actually not very significant, as there were some people who stayed as a pseudo-heavenly venerate for a long time, while there were others who remained in that state for a short time. This couldn't be a fair comparison. So one would have to look at the current list. It even had a time limit, which was that it would only count the battle merits of the last 1 million years, and not the accumulated figures. 1 million years was indeed too short. Even supreme prodigies like Xian Chihu and Lin Yulian needed more than 10 million years to reach this level, so it could be said that this was a very fair comparison. Ling Han wasn't interested in this kind of leaderboard. He only had one goal, which was to become a 7th-tier heavenly venerate. However, there's no harm trying it out. How were the battle merits counted? Previously, once they had reported for duty, each of them was given a ring. This was a special celestial tool which had a certain life-saving effect. In addition, it would also count the number of enemies killed, with the ability to distinguish between ninth heaven celestial kings and pseudo-heavenly venerates. It was said that some people were very low-key. They didn't want the others to know their battle prowess, and thus would take off their rings during battle so that their battle merits wouldn't be counted. On the current list, Ling Han saw a familiar name. He Yufeng, but he was only ranked in the 800th place. As for Heavenborn, his ranking was unknown. It was only normal. Heavenborn was at the 9th heaven. Even if he could fight against a pseudo-heavenly venerate, was he able to kill one? But if he was just killing 9th heaven celestial kings, how many would he be required to kill to be on the leaderboard? The leaderboard may be updated at any time, so He Yufeng and Heavenborn might come back soon to see the changes in their rankings, Ling Han murmured. Thus, he decided to stay in the city for the next few days until the leaderboard was updated. However, it was possible that Hysteria would have already launched a new wave of assault if he were to go out of the city to fight again by that time. Young people, no matter how calmly they said it, were actually very concerned about things like rankings, as they all had an air of arrogance, and would not want to be inferior to others. Therefore, with this being the year when the leaderboard would be updated, many people who had been cultivating outside returned one after another to see if they were to have a chance to make it to the current list. No need to think about the general list. Unless they had been fighting for countless years, and were about to become the 1st-tier heavenly venerate, it would only be wishful thinking to hope for making this list. Every day, a large number of young elites would return. Some people clearly knew that they could not make it onto the leaderboard, but they were extremely curious. They just wanted to know who would be on the leaderboard. 10 days, 1 month, and more people would gather in this city that was unlike a city. Every day, they would make a trip to the Celestial Administration to see whether the leaderboard had been updated. Another half a month later, the leaderboard was finally updated. Damn, who is this Ling Han? How did he get to the top ranking of the current list without making a sound? How is this possible? The current list counts one's battle merits in the last 1 million years. He wasn't on the list the last time, which means that he surpassed at least 1,000 names in these 1,000 years. He went from not being on the list to reaching the top ranking of the list. There was an uproar in the crowd. Chapter 27:16, 27:16 The First Battle. 27:16 The First Battle. A rookie was incredibly fresh, yet actually killed all the way to make it to the top of the recent leaderboard in a single stroke. Take a look at his battle merits. Everyone hurriedly looked. Just entered the realm battlefield, but before coming, he has killed over 10,000 pseudo-heavenly venerates. It was very simple, and just contained these few words. Fuck, more than 10,000. He has just come to the realm battlefield. Don't tell me that he has killed so many pseudo-heavenly venerates in these short 1,000 years. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, either. Hold on, this kind of battle merit. Wouldn't he be able to make it to the general leaderboard? Though the general leaderboard would also be updated, the truth was that they would not be paying much attention to it, because it comprised merits that had been accumulated through endless years. It wasn't that you would be able to be ranked on the general leaderboard just because of a powerful battle prowess. Thus, it was fine just to glance through the general leaderboard. Perhaps only one person would be able to find their name there through trillions and trillions of years. But Ling Han's battle merit was probably enough to be ranked on the list. They searched through the general leaderboard, and as expected, they found Ling Han's name around the 800s. It was still the same assessment. This ranking was far superior to those of Xin Chihu and Lin Yulian. This is mad. This must have created a whole new record. Someone made his way onto the list for the first time, and is ranked in both the recent leaderboard and general leaderboard. This has never happened before. Just how did he manage to kill over 10,000 pseudo-heavenly venerates? This quickly caused a great deal of curiosity. Everyone was guessing. In fact, they did not even take note of the changes in rankings for others on the recent leaderboard. In the crowd, He Yufeng was gaping, the expression on his face extremely colorful. This Ling Han. Was it that Ling Han that he knew? Impossible. He had only been a 7th heaven celestial king before, and now he should have just advanced to the 8th heaven at most. Even if he was already a 9th heaven celestial king, how had he managed to kill over 10,000 pseudo-heavenly venerates? More importantly, were there so many pseudo-heavenly venerates for him to kill? It should be known that when the troops of Hysteria attacked the city, everyone would be staying on defense behind the city wall, using the heavy weapons of the city defense to attack. This would not be included in their battle merits. Then, charging out of the city to hunt down the lingering dregs of Hysteria's troops, just how many would they be able to kill? Over 10,000 pseudo-heavenly venerates, where had they come from? This was also everyone's question. There were indeed some people who usually kept a low profile, and would abruptly become an overnight celebrity, but no matter how strong you were, you would still have to find over 10,000 pseudo-heavenly venerates for you to kill. I don't believe it. I'm going to ask the one who organizes this ranking list how it's being done. Let's go. Everyone went to seek out the person in charge of the rankings noisily. The rankings were very simple because everyone was wearing a special ring. Every person they killed would be recorded, and it would also be recorded in the Celestial Administration. As long as a timeline was drawn, making a comparison was easy. Thus, though there were a total of 7 people in charge of the rankings, they were all just 9th heaven celestial kings. Having so many people gather around them, their faces involuntarily twitched. What was going on? Once they found out what the matter was, they all shook their heads, saying that they did not know the exact reason either. The only thing they knew was that when they were arranging the rankings, a heavenly venerate came over, and stuffed Ling Han's results into their pile. In truth, they were also very curious. Who exactly was this Ling Han? How were his battle merits so incredibly great? Everyone exchanged looks. Ling Han's battle merits were actually not genuine, but had rather been decided with a single word from a heavenly venerate. This. There had to be some exaggeration in this. But to demand answers from a heavenly venerate was something none of them dared to do, so they could only mobilize their own connections to investigate the situation. Finally, someone was the first to find out the facts. It is like this. Hysteria bewitched a disciple of the Martial Academy, and commanded him to enter into the Celestial King graveyard, drawing the 9th heaven celestial kings there to a certain location through deception. They were then modified by Hysteria's power, and became pseudo-heavenly venerates. Ling Han coincidentally uncovered this, and those pseudo-heavenly venerates had still been hatching, so they were not able to react at all. Thus, one strike after another, he killed all of them, so there were indeed more than 10,000 of them. At that time, Ling Han had not arrived here yet, so his battle merits were not recorded by the ring. With such words, everyone understood, so that was how it is. So he has just picked up an astronomical advantage. Sigh, why have I never encountered this kind of great fortune? If I had, my name would have resounded throughout the whole world. It cannot be helped, while we are all humans, different people would have different destinies. Everyone sighed, feeling only jealousy and defiance towards Ling Han, and thinking that it was only because his luck was really too good, and that was why he had gotten this massive advantage. Ling Han only found out much later. Very long after the great commotion, he only realized that he had actually made his way to the number 1 position of the recent leaderboard in this round of rankings, and his name had also even progressed greatly in the general leaderboard. However, he was not much interested in the rankings in the first place, and when he found out that he was ranked at the top, he only smiled, and did not take it to heart at all. The large black dog was roaming around outside every day, searching for Heavenborn's whereabouts. With his strong sense of smell, there was no need for Ling Han to help at all. He alone was able to do this job. Not many days later, news came back from the large black dog. He had discovered Heavenborn. However, the Celestial Administration had just issued a warning in the last few days. It was possible that Hysteria's troops would launch an attack soon, and everyone was warned not to exit the city, and stay on their guard at all times. That was because once the attack from Hysteria came, they would not be reminding anyone. In such an atmosphere, everyone was on alert. The atmosphere in the city became extremely tight-strung, so Ling Han could not find any chance to make a move. Then, he'd just have to wait until this period of time passed. The storm was about to come, and the atmosphere in the city appeared considerably oppressive because every time Hysteria attacked, it would cause tremendous damage, leading to a great amount of bloodshed and casualties. Who could be sure they could still continue living in this world after this battle? But it was also this kind of war that would help prodigies rapidly mature and grow to become top-tier elites. 3 months later, without any warning, the troops of Hysteria assaulted. Boom! A massive bang resounded like thunder. Enemy attack! Man your stations! The 2 heavenly venerates issued their commands, and immediately set up the defenses. The initially dark city wall immediately glowed, streaks of green light flowing before being shot out, and launching a solid blow as they swept outwards of the city wall. The barrier was the fundamental reason that the Flaming Frost Realm could continue to exist. It allowed the combined power of countless people to be gathered together and launched as a massive strike through the barrier, a gigantic precious tool which combined both attack and defense. It was said that only the 8th spatial level did not have any barrier, because there was nothing in this world that could withstand the power of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate. Even a heavenly venerate tool could not. Ling Han and the company all stayed beneath the wall. They were in charge of striking down those that had dodged the city light wave and slipped through the net to charge into the city. This city wall was built from a special material. Not only was it extremely sturdy, it also cut off divine sense, so the people inside had completely no idea what the situation was like outside. But only a short while later, a gigantic dark shadow passed through the city wall, and rapidly descended from the skies. Shockingly, it looked like an octopus, but the number of its tentacles was far more than any normal octopus possessed. It was also extraordinarily large, reaching a few hundred meters in height. The moment it appeared, it waved its long limbs, whipping them out in all directions. At the same time, even more that managed to slip through the net appeared. They were all octopus monsters. Kill! Ling Han charged out, sword in hand. At this kind of time, there was no need to have any reservations. They had to draw out their full battle prowess at the very first moment. Otherwise, should their companions be wounded, or even killed, because they were holding back, it would be too late for regrets. His first battle in the realm battlefield had officially begun. Chapter 2717, 2717 River of Blood. 2717 River of Blood. Wang. A spiritual attack was shooting towards Ling Han. He was unafraid. His body was like divine metal, spiritual attacks no longer had any effect on him. Pooh! With the strike of his sword, one of the tentacles of the octopus monster was immediately severed, as if it was made of tofu. It was so easy for him because he held a heavenly venerate tool, but no one else had had such a great stroke of luck to have been able to forge a heavenly venerate tool when they were in the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier or even ninth heaven. Pang, pang, pang. Countless blows landed on the octopus's tentacles, yet it only caused the octopus monster's skin to sink slightly, and did not cause any open wounds. Of course, there were also some that were very strong, and delivered forceful strikes with various celestial tools, which also caused the octopus monster to bleed. This was only a monster, yet was capable of matching at least a dozen pseudo-heavenly venerates. This battle prowess was truly astonishing. The octopus monster became ferocious, several hundred of its tentacles waving around at the same time. Pang, pang, pang. Immediately, this caused massive damage. There were buildings that were instantly destroyed, and there were also some people that were whipped flying. If they were ninth heaven celestial kings, all the bones in their body would be directly shattered from the force. Ling Han thought for a moment, and retreated immediately. With the Empress and the Rain Emperor present, he had lingering worries. After all, the two of them were only peak stage 8th heaven celestial kings. It was too dangerous. He could not charge too far away from them. Thus, he decided to just play bodyguard for the two of them, but he would not interfere immediately when the two of them encountered danger. Instead, he would only interfere secretly when they were at risk of instant death. Furthermore, this was not complete resolution of the danger, but rather turning their deadly situation into only a dangerous one. Only then would it be effective training. Under the combined force of several dozen pseudo-heavenly venerates, this octopus monster was soon dealt with, but there were more such monsters inside the city. There were mushroom clouds rising all around them. Attention, the hothead ox monster is here. Right after this was announced, pang, a large bang rang out suddenly from the city wall. It was like some colossal creature had heavily crashed into the wall. Fortunately, this city wall was sturdy enough, and had not been blasted through. Be careful, here it is again. Pang! Another large bang resounded. Not only was the city wall moaning, even the ground was trembling. What the heck was this? After more than 100 times, a massive hole was actually created in the city wall with a boom behind Ling Han, and he saw a gigantic black ox charge into the wall. Slightly less than half its body already went through. But after this collision, the large black ox was also knocked unconscious. It was as if it was already dead. Without the slightest hesitation, Ling Han delivered a stab with his sword. Pooh! The tip of the sword sank into the large black ox's forehead, going in all the way until the sword hilt. Heavenly venerable tier destructive power penetrated through, and this large black ox immediately died for good. However, when Ling Han pulled out the sword, he saw that the large black ox actually started moving. Could it be that it had risen from the dead? The large black ox's body was whipped out in a flash, and a massive foot that was covered in white fur appeared in the hole that had been created. Ling Han came closer, and saw that this was a colossal snowman. It grabbed the large black ox with a hand, holding it like a toy one. And behind this snowman, there was a troop of tightly packed monsters as far as the eye could see, and they were charging over. Though waves of light were being shot from the city wall, killing the majority of these monsters, the follow-up troops were relentless, as if there was no end to them. Gee! 3 small monsters appeared above the wall. They looked like macaques, and stretched out tiny claws. They were only about 3 feet tall as well, and their blood-red eyes focused on Ling Han. Xiao, Xiao. They quickly pounced, their speed impressive. Ling Han shook his head, and told the Empress and the Rain Emperor to step forwards. These were just 3 little ninth heaven monsters, and there was no need for him to fight personally. Battle, battle, battle. There would be people wounded continuously and endless people collapsing. Blood spread all over the ground. Most came from Hysteria's troops, their blood being black, but there was also a portion that came from the defenders. Fortunately, this wave of battle only lasted 3 days, and no large-scale troops appeared after that. The limited number of soldiers that had slipped through the net began to retreat. Everyone pursued them for a while before retreating into the city. After a major battle, there was a need to make proper adjustments. Furthermore, this battle had only persisted for 3 days. According to experience, this could only be considered as a part of foreplay. The upcoming battles would be even crueler. Thus, no one dared to take a risk and penetrate the front line deeply, as no one wanted to die so easily like this. The Empress and the Rain Emperor had both sustained considerable injury, and this was also because Ling Han had not completely resolved the danger for them. However, traversing the border between life and death like this, both of them could vaguely feel that they could just touch the doors to the 9th heaven. After the great battle, what was the most important was naturally repairs and recovery. Because the city wall was key to the defense against the invading troops, the damaged places would have to be repaired at the first opportunity. Otherwise, should Hysteria's troops attack again, the damage caused would really be too great, and they could only surrender this barrier by then, and retreat to the next one. The repair works had only been completed for 5 days, and Hysteria's troops had already launched their second wave of attack. Ling Han still did the same as before, mainly focusing on training the Rain Emperor and the Empress. Aside from that, he would only interfere when any monsters threatened the city's defense. However, this assault still lasted only 3 days. It is only 3 days again. These are all minor skirmishes. But the more it is like this, the more frightening the final storm that is brewing will be. I hope the great storm will come sooner, or who knows how much more terrifying damage will be caused. Everyone was frowning. Previously, it had happened that there had been a series of 11 small assaults, and the giant assault that had brewed over that time had caused the deaths of several hundred pseudo-heavenly venerates, as well as countless 9th heaven celestial kings. Hopefully, the great assault that would detonate this time would not be as terrifying as that. That was several hundred pseudo-heavenly venerates. Just how many true heavenly venerates would they have been able to become in future? This was a great loss to the Genesis world, but for Hysteria, it was only an expense of a bit of time. The minor assaults were still continuing, one wave after another, but the great offensive that everyone was anticipating and fearing did not appear, causing their nerves to become more and more on edge. Ling Han had no time to bother about these things. Under this kind of pressure of life and death, the doors to the 9th heaven were about to open for the Empress and Rain Emperor. Perhaps it would be this time, or it might be the next. However, after 9 small waves of attacks, the final great assault was imminent at last. A colossal troop of monsters assaulted. Though the strongest was only a pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, the advantage in numbers was extremely obvious. A great number of monsters charged past the city wall, and an intense melee unfolded. This battle created a river of blood, and lasted for a whole month. In fact, there were a great many heavenly venerates that rushed in to join the battle ranks as reinforcements. Though their battle prowess would be restricted, they were still considerably stronger than the average pseudo-heavenly venerates. Furthermore, even if they could unleash power on the level of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, it was still good to have an additional soldier, wasn't it? Fortunately, they ultimately managed to defend the barrier, and stabilize this line of defense, even if it came at the price of a great many elites dying. For Ling Han, the greater piece of good news was that both the Rain Emperor and the Empress could break through now. They made some slight preparations, and then both of them broke through, advancing to the 9th heaven, both of them now standing at the pinnacle of the celestial path. At this time, this was a rare time of relaxation for the city. Going by the usual pattern, there would be a number of years of peace after a great battle. After all, Hysteria also needed time to accumulate its troops. Thus, banquets would be held one after another. A considerable number of prodigies would be invited in turn, and they could use this opportunity to converse and socialize, improving the relations among them. Ling Han also received an invitation, but the person who had issued the invitation was Lu Tianxian. Chapter 2718, 2718 Ulterior Motives. 2718 Ulterior Motives. Lu Tianxian had actually invited Ling Han. Just what was he planning? It should have something to do with Lin Piaoxue, the Empress said. Ling Han nodded. Otherwise, he really did not have any other connection with Lu Tianxian. Are you going? The Empress looked towards him. There's no harm in going, Ling Han said smilingly. In the first spatial level, he should be invincible. Even a first-tier heavenly venerate could not wound him. This was because he would be restricted by the structure of heaven and earth. The Empress nodded. She naturally knew just exactly how strong Ling Han was right now. The banquet would be held a day later. On the next day, they did some minor preparations, and then set off towards Lu Tianxian's manor. This actually could not be considered a manor. It was only an extremely simple house, but because of the existence of spatial god tools, this was no issue. The inside could be done up very extravagantly. There was a guard at the doors, and would only let people pass after receiving their invitations. Though this person was only at the 9th heaven, it was forbidden to cause trouble here. If you broke any rules at the Martial Academy, then even the greatest crime possibly would not make you sentenced with death for the sake of the heavenly venerate backing you. You would only be thrown into the Celestial King graveyard. However, it was different here. If you committed any serious crime, you would be immediately executed. That was because this was the foremost line of battle. Not even the slightest negligence was permitted here, strict obedience had to be ensured. Ling Han had no plans to disobey this kind of rule either. He handed the invitation to the other, and after that person took the invitation, he made a "please" gesture, allowing Ling Han and the Empress to enter. Ling Han and the Empress entered, and shockingly saw a doorway of light flickering. This clearly was the entrance into the spatial god tool. The couple entered through this doorway, and felt a tremor run through them. They immediately arrived at a new location. In this place, the sun was hanging high, and the temperature was comfortable. There were fragrant flowers blooming all around, making it look completely different from the barren and inhospitable land that they had come from. On the grassy ground, there were stone tables of different size and color laid out, looking like mushrooms. However, there was actually a pattern to their arrangement and size. The further in front they were, the larger the table, and the further back, the smaller the table. The arrangements had surely been made carefully. Only those who were in the upper social circles were worthy of sitting at the large tables, while nameless pawns could only sit at the small tables. Ling Han had not yet sat down when he saw Lu Tianxian walk over with a crowd around him. His expression was filled with pride, and he looked a completely different person than when he had been in front of Lin Piaoxue. This should be his true face, proud and lofty, considering no one worthy of his notice. Where is Celestial Maiden Lin? Lu Tianxian asked the moment he arrived. Realization dawned on Ling Han. So this was the reason that Lu Tianxian had invited him? He had an ulterior motive. Ling Han shook his head. Firstly, I do not know where Miss Lin is. Secondly, even if I did, why should I tell you? Lu Tianxian was taken aback, feeling slight disbelief. A 9th heaven celestial king actually dared talk back to him? This, who did this brat think he was? How dare you? You actually dare speak in this manner to young Master Lu? Behind Lu Tianxian, a man stepped forwards. He was a ninth heaven celestial king, and the clan behind him was inferior to the Lu clan. Thus, he willingly became his lackey. The empress stepped out, demanding menacingly, "And who are you?" He actually dared to shout at her man. That man glanced at the empress, and he involuntarily felt short of breath. Just how many men would not be intoxicated with the empress's exquisite beauty? He was completely besotted, but did not expect that the empress would move. Pa! He was sent flying with a slap delivered through the air. Lu Tianxian's expression couldn't help but change drastically. This person was too arrogant, she actually dared to make a move at his banquet. But the empress was enchantingly beautiful, her grace incomparable, so much so that he felt that it was very difficult to even feel angry. This woman was too beautiful. She was probably comparable to that supreme bloom of legends, the most outstandingly talented young princess of the Lin clan, Lin Yolian, wasn't she? He came back to his wits, and said, "Miss, you have gone too far." Fortunately, the person who had made a move was the empress. If it had been Ling Han, he would definitely not have any reservations, and immediately move to take him down. Ling Han chuckled. What's the harm in a little spar? He directly established that this was just a spar. Otherwise, they would have gotten hold of a chink in his armor. To have a woman stand up for you, aren't you embarrassed? Lu Tianxian asked calmly. He turned around, and said, "Gang Dong, you come and have a spar with this person." Even until now, he did not know Ling Han's name. That was because he did not take Ling Han seriously at all, and in fact couldn't even pluck up the interest to find out Ling Han's name. Otherwise, he would definitely know that the person that was standing in front of him right now was the recently very famous Ling Han. Of course, even if he did know, he would not have any qualms, either. That was because everyone thought that Ling Han had just had a great stroke of luck. If it was up to genuine ability, how could he possibly be a match for a pseudo-heavenly venerate? A man immediately stepped out. He had a very large, sturdy build, and there was actually a bright golden horn protruding from his head. The empress was keen and eager. She had just advanced to the ninth heaven, so her fighting spirit was presently soaring. Without another word, she moved directly. The single-horned man did not expect that the empress would not speak of any rules or such and move immediately. He was slightly thrown off balance, but it was only for an instant. Immediately, he regained his footing, and launched a counterattack. Boom! The two great elites clashed, instantly creating a terrifying aftermath. Lu Tianxian moved quickly, suppressing the aftermath. Otherwise, this was just a spatial god tool, so how could it sustain the clash between two great ninth heaven elites? It would definitely be destroyed immediately. Thankfully, he was a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Otherwise, if he was only a ninth heaven celestial king, he would never be able to make it in time. Though the empress had just reached the ninth heaven, her battle prowess was very extraordinary. Very quickly, she had taken the initiative, and it was apparent that she had the upper hand. Lu Tianxian was surprised. He had not expected a delicate beauty like the empress would actually also have such amazing natural talent in cultivation as well. A hint of admiration flashed through his eyes, but he immediately hid it. His target was Lin Piaoxue, the noble daughter of the Lin clan. If he could marry her, it would have extraordinary significance. With such a fight breaking out, it also drew the eyes of a great many people around them, and they all watched as the battle progressed. They all nodded, stunned by both the empress's strength and her exquisite beauty. All of them supported the empress. When the fighters came to about 500 moves, the single-horned man had to admit defeat. Otherwise, he would be beaten very badly. This kind of result had long been expected, but when they saw the single-horned man admit defeat, they couldn't help but feel surprised. After reaching the ninth heaven, there was basically no one mediocre among them. At the very least, they would have the aptitude of monarch tier, and the Empress had clearly just broken through to the 9th heaven, yet possessed such amazing battle prowess. This natural talent in cultivation was too terrifying. "How should I address you, miss?" Lu Tianxian asked smilingly. "What business of yours is it what my wife's name is?" Ling Han retorted, and flicked a sleeve. "How boring. This is a complete waste of time. You are truly arrogant." A woman stepped out. "You can only have a woman step out for you, how shameless." Ling Han laughed loudly. "It cannot be helped. I am very lucky, I found such a good wife." Hearing these words, the Empress couldn't help but smile. It was like the melting of an iceberg, beautiful beyond comparison. Everyone felt their heart throb wildly. This beauty was enough to melt even their souls. "Hee, the banquet has just begun, so what need is there to rush?" someone asked smilingly, playing mediator. He had no wish for such a beautiful woman to leave in advance. Chapter 2719, 2719 He Yufeng arrives. 2719 He Yufeng arrives. Ling Han somewhat looked down on these people. What was there to be so proud of after merely surviving a wave of attack from Hysteria's army? Indeed, being alive was something to be happy about, but to go so far as to throw a huge banquet, as if having won a great victory? Ling Han believed that in the second and third spatial layers, there ought not be such a pompous and grandiose atmosphere. He shook his head. He had initially wanted to see what Lu Tianxian was planning, but he ended up being utterly disappointed. It was merely for picking up girls. "Let's go." Ling Han shook his head as he spoke to the Empress. "Hey, what's the hurry?" Someone stretched out his hand to stop him. This wasn't Lu Tianxian's follower, but a pseudo-heavenly venerate. He looked at Ling Han with a smile, but his eyes were full of disdain. His name was Nong Gaolin. Not only was he himself a pseudo-heavenly venerate, his father was also a third-tier heavenly venerate. His background was not beneath that of Lu Tianxian. Of course Lu Tianxian wouldn't just invite a few of his underlings. What kind of class would such a gathering have? Therefore, a prodigy like Nong Gaolin, who was on an equal footing with him, had been invited. It wouldn't work for more prominent figures, though. Firstly, the person being invited might not give him face by attending. Secondly, even if they were to come, one would have to act humble to the other party. Being a host and yet being overwhelmed by the guest would only make him feel uncomfortable, so why bother? Ling Han's eyes turned cold. "Are you trying to provoke me?" Infighting was forbidden here, but self-defense wasn't prohibited, and the party who stirred up trouble would bear all the consequences. Everyone here is a comrade in arms, so why ruin the friendly atmosphere? Another person came out to play mediator. Come, let's all sit down. Not everyone has arrived yet, so how can anyone want to leave now?" "That's right, there will be a lot of people coming this time. For example, He Yufeng, who was ranked 862nd on the current list." Ling Han originally wanted to leave, but when he heard He Yufeng's name, he stopped in his tracks. "He Yufeng, finally we will see each other again." The Empress nodded towards Ling Han, indicating that everything would be up to him to decide. Ling Han smiled, took the Empress' hand, and walked forward. Since he had decided to stay, of course he had to find the best seat for them to sit down. Seeing Ling Han pulling the Empress and heading forward, everyone was surprised. Could it be that they actually wanted to sit at the large table? Pseudo-heavenly venerates would sit at the large table, while the 9th heaven celestial kings would sit at the small table. This was a rule by tacit approval. This brat was being too tactless. Did he really think he was the overlord here? Lu Tianxian wanted to speak, but once again stopped himself. He didn't know what was the relationship between Lin Piaoxue and Ling Han and his group. To be on the safe side, it would be better not to let himself be the villain. Since Ling Han was being so arrogant, he would garner the dislike of others. Lu Tianxian just needed to watch the show, that was all. In the future, even if Lin Piaoxue were to get upset, she wouldn't be able to blame this on him. Who asked Ling Han to be so arrogant this time? Correct, not only he couldn't get angry, but he also had to try his best to appear to be protecting Ling Han so that Lin Piaoxue even had to be grateful to him. This would be a good idea. Thinking about it this way, Lu Tianxian naturally wouldn't speak anymore, and even suppressed what the people behind him were about to say with a stern look. Ling Han pulled the Empress to the frontmost row, and then sat down together with her. There was already an exquisite fruit plate on the table, where the fruits were of vibrant colors, and they could smell its fragrance. He helped the Empress peel off the skin of the fruit very attentively, and put the flesh of the fruit into the Empress' mouth, while the Empress also smilingly opened her mouth and bit into it. Their affection was on full display. Fuck. At the sight of this scene, the group of people such as Nong Gaolin became very displeased. A pretty boy like you, relying on a woman to be arrogant and domineering, even so much as to show your affection in public, this was being too condescending indeed. They sat down one after another, either beside Ling Han or behind him. In fact, there were not that many large tables. Lu Tianxian only invited about 20 pseudo-heavenly venerates, most of his guests being ninth heaven celestial kings. These pseudo-heavenly venerates were held in the highest esteem and treated with reverence. Given that there was a limited number of pseudo-heavenly venerates, the number of large tables corresponded. Once everyone was seated, there would be no empty seats. Ling Han had taken the seat that belonged to He Yufeng, and the latter hadn't arrived yet. There was a pseudo-heavenly venerate who could not bear with it. A ninth heaven celestial king was also worthy to be on an equal footing with them. What sort of status and ability do you have that you could stand side by side with us? He said pensively. His eyes were looking at the sky, showing that he disdained Ling Han, and thought him to be completely beneath contempt. Ling Han nodded. Indeed, sitting with trash like you, I think it really devalued my status. The pseudo-heavenly venerate stood up abruptly, pointing at Ling Han angrily. You. What, do you want to fight? Ling Han smiled. Lu Tianxian hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. Both of you, please calm down. He looked at Ling Han, but suddenly realized that he didn't know the other party's name, but neither did he bother to ask. Just apologize to Brother Wu. Ling Han just glanced at Lu Tianxian with the kind of gaze like he was staring at an idiot. Lu Tianxian was about to burst into anger, but when he thought of his previous plans, he forcibly endured it. Your character like this, hee. Brother Lu, it seems that this person does not accept your kindness. The Brother Wu from before was named Wu Yuanqing. He stared at Ling Han, thinking about how he could have a spar with Ling Han, and then use the opportunity to severely teach him a lesson. Lu Tianxian just chuckled, and said, I have some relationship with this person, so I had to persuade him. He just said that there was some relationship between them, but the underlying meaning was, if both of you really wanted to fight, then I would not stop either of you. Wu Yuanqing, Nong Gaolin, and the others were all thinking about how to force Ling Han to spar with them, otherwise they would be seen as the strong bullying the weak for no reason, and they would be severely punished for it. Lord He Yufeng has arrived. One person was heard shouting, breaking the silence here. He Yufeng. Is it the He Yufeng who is on the recent leaderboard? He is a real prodigy indeed, and his father is a fourth-tier heavenly venerate. All of a sudden, everyone was getting a little excited. He Yufeng was absolutely the most prominent guest today. A young man was seen walking forward with great strides. He obviously looked slender and not burly, but he exuded a majestic and cold-blooded aura, which caused people to involuntarily feel subdued by his superiority. It was He Yufeng indeed. Brother He. Lu Tianxian immediately stood up from the main seat, and walked over to receive him. He Yufeng just nodded reservedly. In his opinion, this kind of banquet was not up to par, but he had quite an amiable personal relationship with Lu Tianxian, so it couldn't be helped. Since the other party had spoken to invite him, he had no choice but to oblige and come to show support to the other party. Brother He, I'm really sorry. I made a mistake in arranging the seats earlier today. Why don't you and I take the main seat together? Lu Tianxian deliberately said. What's going on? He Yufeng asked. One could even make mistakes in arranging a seat? Here is an ignorant guy who didn't know what's good for him. He's obviously just a ninth heaven celestial king, but he insists on sitting with pseudo-heavenly venerates. However, he seemed to have some sort of relationship with celestial maiden Lin, so I can't say much, Lu Tianxian said. He Yufeng's face turned black. Although there were many women surnamed Lin here, there seemed to be only one who could be addressed as a celestial maiden. Lin Piaoxue, he said in a deep voice. That's right. Lu Tianxian nodded. He Yufeng immediately strode forward, walked to the end of the large table, and saw that the person occupying his seat was none other than Ling Han. You are still as arrogant as expected. He Yufeng said sharply, his eyes glowering with a cold light. Ling Han was someone he had to get rid of, with a level of freakishness that even surpassed his own. Chapter 2720 Battling He Yufeng again. 2720 Battling He Yufeng again. Everyone was surprised. Could it be that He Yufeng recognized this person? Otherwise, why would he say such a thing? Ling Han smiled lightly. He Yufeng, do you dare to battle? Pooh! Instantly, many people actually choked. How dared a mere ninth heaven celestial king challenge a pseudo-heavenly venerate? He had to have gone insane. Nong Gaolin, Wu Yuanqing, and others all shook their heads. It was no wonder that Ling Han was so arrogant just now. This brat even dared to challenge a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so what even if he had shown them such an attitude? Moreover, they were also absolutely speechless. They were thinking how to provoke Ling Han to accept a challenge, but in the end, he didn't need any provocation at all, and directly took the initiative to issue a challenge. He Yufeng snorted. Ling Han, don't think that just because you're ranked number 1 on the recent leaderboard, you can look down on a pseudo-heavenly venerate. That's because you were simply lucky. What, so he was Ling Han? Everyone was shocked. Since the update of the recent leaderboard, Ling Han's name was being talked about all the time. It was just that he was too low-key up until now, so few people had seen him or known any details regarding him. People like Lu Tianxian and the others were even more shocked. The ninth heaven celestial kings did not know, they had never been on the list themselves, so they naturally had no idea how difficult it would be to get onto the list. However, who among Lu Tianxian or the other pseudo-heavenly venerates hadn't given their all to make it to the list? It was just that by looking at the results recorded on the ring, there had always been such a long way to go for them to make it onto the list. But a ninth heaven celestial king had crushed them. Before, they were already quite upset when they had yet to meet the person, and now, thinking about Ling Han's arrogance, it naturally made them even more resentful. You were being so arrogant, and that was because of your ranking first on the recent leaderboard? Damn, you were nothing more than a mere ninth heaven celestial king, just a lucky bastard who had gotten a bit of a head start. Did you really consider yourself as some kind of big shot? Ling Han smiled. Cut the crap, I'm asking if you dare to battle. Everyone frowned. This brat was too arrogant, how could he be so proud? Lu Tianxian was speechless. He was already a condescending person himself, but compared with Ling Han, he was still considered to be a minor case. You are no more than a ninth heaven, I won't bother to bully you. He Yufeng said dully. Are you afraid of losing? Ling Han said laughingly. He Yufeng's expression changed, revealing an angry look. To be honest, he was indeed a little worried. Back when Ling Han was at the 7th heaven, he was already capable of causing him injury. Even though the other party had gone all out to launch a powerful attack which had slightly wounded him, and the other party actually sustained more serious injuries from the recoil of the attack, now that Ling Han had advanced to the 9th heaven, how much had his strength improved? Even if the other party couldn't defeat him, if he himself couldn't easily get rid of the other party, then it would also be a big blow to his own prestige. But being so provoked by Ling Han, could he still decline to battle? How could a dignified pseudo-heavenly venerate not dare to accept the challenge of a 9th heaven celestial king? This time, the refusal was due to his disdain, but he was being challenged again. If he still didn't do something about it, he would be laughed at. Ling Han, you asked for it yourself. He Yufeng said lightly, with killing intent flowing from him. Then, come out for a battle. Ling Han said. Even the spatial god tool could hardly withstand the battle between two pseudo-heavenly venerates. It might be fine for a short period of time, but it would definitely be pierced through should the duration be longer. Ling Han took the initiative in leaving the spatial god tool, and leaped into the sky. He Yufeng followed suit. With a touch of his feet, he also leaped into the sky. After him, more and more people came out and floated up to the sky one after another to watch the battle. Of course, none of them actually believed that Ling Han could contend against a pseudo-heavenly venerate. This ought to be a one-sided violent oppression. Ling Han, your advancement is indeed astonishing. It's only been no more than 10 million years, and you have already advanced to the 9th heaven. He Yufeng's eyes shone with vitality. At that time, he had really wanted to kill Ling Han, but he had been stopped by Lin Piaoxue. This had also made him see his own shortcomings. In the past 10 million years, he was constantly fighting in bloody battles. His strength had improved by leaps and bounds. The late stage of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. However, you are not the only one who has made progress. He released his aura without reservations, and it reverberated like a tsunami. My strength is many times greater than before. I'll give you another head start of 9 moves. He crossed his hands behind his back. At that time, he had failed to kill Ling Han with 1 move, and had been injured by Ling Han instead. This was a knot in his heart, and now he wanted to untie this knot in his heart. This made everyone else nod in agreement. As expected of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so impressive. Ling Han did not show any courtesy either. He stretched his right hand forward, balling it into a fist, and as he circulated the 5 elements lightning technique, 9-colored divine lightning instantly pulsated around his fist. He Yufeng's expression involuntarily turned apprehensive. Although Ling Han's punch hadn't been thrown yet, he was already feeling the heavy pressure. The impact of this one strike was bound to be earth-shattering. Before he could finish the thought, Ling Han had already made his move, springing from his feet. Bang, his body shot forward immediately, transforming into a beam of light heading straight towards He Yufeng. That was so fast. Everyone was startled. The 9th heaven celestial kings already could hardly keep up with Ling Han's speed. Even Lu Tianxian and the others were deeply shocked. They thought to themselves, had it been any one of them in the same situation, how would they deal with it? After thinking about it for a while, their faces became solemn. Perhaps they could only be on the defense? Peng! He Yufeng's strength was far greater than that of anyone here, and his reaction was astonishingly quick. He braced himself by crossing both his hands in front of his body, and blocked this strike from Ling Han. However, the power of this punch was too great, and it directly sent He Yufeng flying, and blazing lighting was rippling all over his body, making crackling noises. Peng, 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 He Yufeng smashed through at least 17 cloud clusters, and when he stopped, he felt severe pain on both his hands, as if his bones were broken, and his whole body was numb. He couldn't help feeling astonished. Why was the power of this strike so terrifying? Perhaps it had reached the level of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier? Before he could finish his thought, he only felt such a severe pain in his chest, and when he opened his mouth, he suddenly spewed out a stream of blood. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. A single punch from a ninth heaven celestial king had injured a pseudo-heavenly venerate so seriously that he vomited blood, and this pseudo-heavenly venerate was actually an elite on the recent leaderboard. This is because He Yufeng underestimated his opponent, allowing Ling Han to build up power for an ultimate move, and restricting himself by giving the other party a head start of 9 moves. If He Yufeng had released an ultimate move to strike back just now, it wouldn't have been like this. But Ling Han's strength is indeed beyond expectation. Is he really just a ninth heaven celestial king? Some people were quite objective, and knew that it was not that He Yufeng was outmatched, but that he was just unprepared. However, this did not mean that Ling Han's freakishness could be disregarded at all. Ling Han was not in a hurry to throw a second punch, but rather smilingly said, "So how about it? Do you still want to give me a head start of 9 moves?" "Humph, how can I go back on my words?" He Yufeng insisted. "Okay." Ling Han's body shot forward quickly, and continued to throw another punch. Pung! 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 Each of his strikes was domineering. It was a heavenly venerate technique, so it was naturally terrifying. Poor He Yufeng, he could only defend, and was suddenly being continuously bombarded. He kept retreating, and kept vomiting blood. When Ling Han blasted out the 6th punch, he could not bear it any more, and fought back. Peng, a terrifying aura spread out, and he also used a heavenly venerate technique, or it would be impossible to block the attack. Now, the two were evenly matched. Boom! After the clash of attacks from both sides, the two retreated 150 kilometers away from one another. Both were gazing at each other. Ling Han just scoffed, but didn't say anything. He Yufeng's face actually turned scarlet. He said he wanted to give Ling Han a head start of 9 moves, but he couldn't help fighting back at the 6th move. This was a public embarrassment for him. However, if he hadn't fought back with all his strength, he might have been seriously injured before he could have reached the 9th move. Chapter 27-21, 2721 Defeat. 2721 Defeat. Who could have expected such a result? For a pseudo-heavenly venerate to say that he would allow a celestial king the first 9 moves, anyone would think this was a natural course of events. To speak nothing of 9 moves, even 900 would not be anything strange. Yet what was the result? This was only the 6th move, and the pseudo-heavenly venerate had no choice but to break the agreement and move to counter. How could there be such a powerful celestial king? "Come on, I have no interest in taking advantage of you," Ling Han stated evenly, crooking a finger at He Yufeng. Since He Yufeng had already moved, he would naturally not continue to be reserved. What was the point of continuing the act? "Ling Han, I have underestimated you," he said in a dark tone. Ling Han shook his head. "What I want to hear is not these words." "What do you want to hear?" He Yufeng asked. "You owe me an apology," Ling Han stated seriously. Previously, He Yufeng had used his superior position as a pseudo-heavenly venerate, as well as the fact that he had an old man that was a 4th-tier heavenly venerate, to just break the rules of the martial academy without concern, demanding that Ling Han submit and become his servant. He even wanted to kill the latter. This was unjust, and what Ling Han despised the most was injustice. Thus, he wanted to demand an explanation for this. A puny 9th heaven. He Yufeng's face was filled with disgust. Even if Ling Han had already proven his strength, he still thought that there was no way that Ling Han could be his equal. This was the pride of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. "I will have to beat you into submission then." Pung! Ling Han bounced, and charged forwards with force, rushing towards He Yufeng. There was naturally no way He Yufeng would be afraid. he clashed directly with Ling Han. Two forces at the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier clashed intensely. Both of them had a determination that would not allow them to lose, and both of them went all out. All their moves held nothing back, clashing with blood-boiling intensity. In terms of battle prowess, there was not much difference between the two. They were both at the late-stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, but Ling Han's physique was extremely tough and comparable to divine metal. Even if he did not fight back, it was still extremely difficult for He Yufeng to use brute force to penetrate his defense, and with Ling Han's recovery ability added into the equation, it was possible that he could not even wound Ling Han. Hence, the longer their battle progressed, the more disadvantageous it was for He Yufeng. Ling Han was completely unafraid of trading injury for injury, but He Yufeng was filled with wariness. He did not dare to forcefully clash with Ling Han like this, and this meant that he began to have reservations in the battle. Peng. Long-term defense would ultimately lead to defeat, and He Yufeng finally sustained a punch from Ling Han. Suddenly, he stumbled backwards, and his face flushed red before he spat out a mouthful of blood. But he did not have the time to catch his breath at all before Ling Han's attack was heading his way again. He had no choice but to parry. Peng. Several dozen moves later, He Yufeng sustained another punch. Fortunately, whether it was him or Ling Han, they could not possibly channel the heavenly venerate technique all the time. Thus, this punch had not been delivered with the 9 transformations divine scroll or the 5 elements lightning technique. Peng, peng, peng. He Yufeng was continuously hit, and he was also continuously throwing up blood. He Yufeng, do you remember that I have said this? That even the wrath of an ordinary man can still cause blood to splash 3 feet? Ling Han asked. Now, I have another saying to bestow on you: tides will turn, and power will also shift hands, so do not bully a youth when he is weak. He Yufeng shouted in extreme fury. To be taught a lesson by a puny 9th heaven celestial king. How could he bear such humiliation? A mere brat, you have gone too far, he roared furiously, trying his best to counterattack, yet had completely no power to turn this situation around. Faced with Ling Han, who possessed a physique of divine metal and battle prowess of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, it was useless no matter how hard he tried. Lower your head and admit your mistake, and I would not think any less of you, Ling Han said. In your dreams. He Yufeng said through gritted teeth. He would rather die than submit. Then I will just have to beat you into submission. Ling Han delivered a mad barrage of punches, holding no mercy for his opponent at all. Crack. He Yufeng's bones were broken forcefully, but he was very headstrong, and did not even groan. But so what? Would this cause Ling Han to have any mercy? Finally, He Yufeng could not help but grunt in pain. The injuries he had sustained were really too heavy. Enough. Nong Gaolin rushed into the skies. He definitely could not allow Ling Han to defeat He Yufeng. This was not just He Yufeng's defeat, but would also humiliate the whole circle of pseudo-heavenly venerable tiers. For a pseudo-heavenly venerate to be outmatched by a 9th heaven, what kind of joke was that? Sure then, all of you come together. Ling Han laughed loudly, holding absolutely no fear. His physique was too tough. Even if he had to fight 2 people alone, he would not be disadvantaged at all. His target was very clear, and that was to just attack He Yufeng. As for Nong Gaolin, he ignored him completely, and allowed the former to attack him as he liked. Everyone couldn't help but feel numb. 2 great pseudo-heavenly venerates were still unable to stop Ling Han. Heavens, what kind of monster was this? Wu Yuanqing hesitated for a moment, and then charged towards Ling Han as well, stopping Ling Han from perpetuating his crime. But it was still useless. Ling Han's physique was already tough enough to allow him to have no fear of the attacks of pseudo-heavenly venerates. The attacks they delivered could only leave behind grooves on Ling Han's body, but before they could pursue their advantage, these grooves would rapidly recover. Was he even a human? This was practically a monster. Lu Tianxian also joined the ranks of battle, and there were even more pseudo-heavenly venerates. They were already deeply involved in this. If so many pseudo-heavenly venerates were still unable to stop Ling Han, how would they be able to raise their heads high in the future after this? We attack together. The remaining pseudo-heavenly venerates also moved as well. It could not be denied that the combined force of over 20 pseudo-heavenly venerates was really too strong. Even if they still could not wound Ling Han, it was an easy feat for them to stop him. As long as each of them delivered a single punch, that would form a terrifying amount of power, and forcefully strike Ling Han backwards. He Yufeng finally broke free of this dangerous situation. Ling Han stood still, and did not make another move. It was actually very simple for him to break this stalemate, he only had to draw the divine demon sword. With the heavenly venerate tool in hand, he could conquer anyone. These pseudo-heavenly venerates could only flee in various directions. But once the divine demon sword was drawn, that would result in either death or severe injury, and this would no longer be something as simple as a spar. At the moment, Ling Han only wanted to teach He Yufeng a lesson. He had no plans to throw himself into it too. He Yufeng. Ling Han stood in the air, looking down. Do you feel any regret now? For those who use their superior position to bully others, there would come a day when they would also be bullied. Do you yield? He Yufeng gritted his teeth. He naturally did not want to yield, but since he was outmatched, what was the point of speaking tough? Previously, though Ling Han had lost to him, the former was only a 7th heaven celestial king. Though he had lost, it was an honorable defeat. But now? Ling Han was only a 9th heaven celestial king, yet had used his genuine strength to defeat He Yufeng. What else could the latter say? Now, even speaking one more word would only make him even more humiliated. Ling Han laughed loudly, descended, and said, "Wife, let's go." The Empress nodded, and left hand in hand with Ling Han. Yet everyone was still in a state of shock. A 9th heaven celestial king had actually pointed a finger at the nose of a pseudo-heavenly venerate and lectured him face to face. This was something unprecedented. How could a 9th heaven celestial king possibly be so strong? This was something that everyone could understand even less. That's right. This is strength beyond description. It is completely impossible. Everyone shook their head. How could there possibly be such a strong 9th heaven celestial king in this world? Yet someone sighed slowly, and said, "It is possible, but this kind of prodigy is much, much too rare." How could that be? Everyone was in disbelief. That person countered, "Could it be that you guys have forgotten Lin Yolian and Xin Chihu? These lord and lady." Everyone inhaled sharply. Lin Yolian and Xin Kihi were both absolute legends. They could be ranked in the general leaderboard, and had used such little time to accomplish this. This naturally was a miracle that would have praises sung about it for generations. Furthermore, the battle merits of these two people had been produced through real battle. There was not the slightest exaggeration involved at all. Chapter 27-22, 27-22 Pursuing Heavenborn. 27-22 Pursuing Heavenborn. You guys only know how strong Lady Lin and Lord Xin are, but do you know why they are so strong? The person from before asked calmly. His name was Zhao Fukang, and he was also a pseudo-heavenly venerate. The Grand Elder of the Zhao clan was only a 2nd-tier heavenly venerate, yet was known as one who knows all. He had a great understanding of other heavenly veneratus. It was mostly because he was a gossip. Please explain, Brother Zhao, Lu Tianxian and the others all asked. Zhao Fukang nodded. Everyone knows that one would have to draw that unique power of heaven and earth to advance into the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, and use this power to temper himself, and the moment you can use this power, that means that you have set foot into the 1st tier of the heavenly venerable tier. This was something that everyone knew, so everyone naturally did not show much of a change in expression as they continued listening to him. However, there are some people, whose natural talent is extraordinary. At peak stage 9th heaven, or even earlier than that, they are able to draw the fundamental power of the Genesis world, and temper their physique in advance. What? Shock waves instantly spread through the whole crowd as everyone's eyes immediately grew wide. They were in a state of absolute disbelief. Wasn't this a joke? The path of cultivation was a process of gradual progress, just like how a celestial king would have to cultivate advancing from one heaven to the next. It was impossible that one could directly leap from the first heaven to fifth heaven in a single stroke. Hence, just how could being able to use the fundamental power of the Genesis world to temper one's physique before the 9th heaven or even before reaching the celestial king tier be believed? Furthermore, these were the 6 great fundamental powers. That was something that even a first-tier heavenly venerate could not possibly sense. If they could sense it, they would have become a second-tier heavenly venerate. This was a mere fantasy, an absolute joke. Xiaofan only smiled, and did not take everyone's reaction to heart at all. He continued, with some coincidental chance, added with one's own freakish talent, it is indeed possible. Just think, using the fundamental power to temper his physique, just how strong would his power have to be? Though Ling Han is only at the 9th heaven, in essence, he is actually a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Furthermore, he is tempered by the fundamental power of the Genesis world, so his strength is even stronger than that of other pseudo-heavenly venerates that are on the same level. Unless, you, too, could take this step by using the fundamental power of the Genesis world. When these words fell, a dead silence fell over the whole area. How were they supposed to defeat this kind of freak? However, there is no need for you guys to feel dejected, either. Xiaofan's words took a different turn. Though Ling Han is presently very aggressive, and he can in fact still be supreme over the rest of the world even after becoming a first-tier heavenly venerate, there would no longer be any difference between him and other heavenly venerates of the same tier after advancing to become a second-tier heavenly venerate. At that time, everyone would have grasped one of the fundamental powers of the Genesis world, as well as that unique power of the realm, so there would naturally be no difference among them. Everyone nodded, but very quickly shook their heads again. Becoming a second-tier heavenly venerate? That was easier said than done. The majority of people here might not even be able to reach the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, and if they did, it would be no issue for them to advance to become first-tier heavenly venerates, but to reach the second tier? If they were lucky, 1 out of every 10 people here could succeed. In other words, there were at least 90% of them that would be eternally crushed by Ling Han, and there was no hope for them to ever catch up to or surpass Ling Han. Just the thought of it was dispiriting. Sigh. Someone sighed. Sigh. Even more people were sighing. Ling Han's name once again rang loudly through the entire barrier after this battle. Previously, he had indeed become well known, but everyone had thought that was because his luck was especially good, and that was why he had managed to kill over 10,000 pseudo-heavenly venerates, and made his way into the general leaderboard in a single stroke. But now, he had battled Lu Tianxian and over 20 other pseudo-heavenly venerates all by himself, fighting to the point that He Yufeng did not dare to accept his challenge. Just how strong and domineering was that? How many pseudo-heavenly venerates would be able to accomplish the same feat? And when the news that Ling Han was only a 9th heaven celestial king spread out, everyone was even more stunned, yet a number of them also scoffed in response. Wasn't that a joke? This had to be a huge joke. It had to have been done by someone who was deliberately trying to push Ling Han onto a high pedestal. Another example was the matter of the rankings previously. Anyone with eyes could tell that this was the case with a single glance. Yet Ling Han was completely unconcerned about this. All he had wanted was to vent the anger accumulated on the last occasion. He Yufeng had also wanted to kill him at the time, but Ling Han would leave this debt for collection at a later time. Whoever owed him, he ultimately would collect on their debts. Little Han, we can move now. The large black dog suddenly came over. Ling Han raised a brow. Heavenborn left the city? The large black dog nodded strongly. This day has finally come. Previously, he kept monitoring Heavenborn, and the moment the latter left the city, he came to find Ling Han. Let's go. Ling Han nodded. The man and dog left the city, and did not take the Empress or invite the Rain Emperor. It was fine for the two of them to do this. This was not something that was appropriate to be widely known. The large black dog was an expert in tracking. His head was lowered all the time along the way, his behind raised high, and he was occasionally sniffing here and there before they continued their journey. Over 20 days later, they arrived in a canyon, and could hear sounds of battle coming from within. They walked closer, and saw that Heavenborn was presently fighting with a snowman monster. This snowman monster was several hundred meters high, and possessed pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess, and though Heavenborn had already advanced to the 9th heaven, his battle prowess had not reached the height of pseudo-heavenly venerable tier yet, or rather, he was just a little bit away from that height. But even if he was suppressed in terms of battle prowess, this was still not a one-sided battle. This naturally was due to his physique. Even if he sustained a heavy blow, or even if a large hole had been pierced open in his gut, he would be able to immediately recover. This was much too exhausting. If the battle continued on in this manner, there would eventually come a day when this snowman monster would die of exhaustion. But a pseudo-heavenly venerate was still a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Without 8 to 10 years, this was not even thinkable. Ling Han naturally had no interest in waiting for so many years, and was just about to stand up and join the battle, but as he watched, Heavenborn's body suddenly spread out, becoming over 900 meters tall. Then, it was as if Heavenborn turned into a piece of cloth as he wrapped around the giant snow monster. Seeing this scene, Ling Han couldn't help but stop and continue watching. This cloth that Heavenborn had transformed into was astonishingly huge. When one had reached a cultivation level like theirs, size was actually not the key factor here. Transformation was only the matter of a single thought for them. Thus, this cloth that he had transformed into was also extraordinarily huge, wrapping around the giant snow monster in a single stroke. The giant snow monster struggled strongly, but the toughness of divine metal added with Heavenborn's own power securely bound this giant snow monster. This cloth very quickly wrapped tightly around the giant snow monster. Then, in a flash, Heavenborn regained his original appearance, but his stomach was now large and rounded. This was equivalent to having devoured this giant snow monster. This was astonishing. A 9th heaven celestial king had actually swallowed a pseudo-heavenly venerate by force. Tong! Suddenly, one spot on Heavenborn's lower abdomen stuck out. That was the strong counterattack of the giant snow monster he had swallowed. It wanted to charge out of him, but the skin of his stomach was extremely tough, and the giant snow monster was unable to blast out of his stomach. Heavenborn grunted, and wisps of black chi exuded from him. From the look of things, it was a little like those celestial kings that had been infected by Hysteria's spiritual power, yet it was clear that he was self-aware. Wang, wang, wang. One after another, seals appeared on his body. They surpassed regulations, and were extremely profound and mysterious. This monster is quite strong. I will need at least 10,000 years to digest it, Heavenborn mumbled. However, if I get a few more, I will be able to become a pseudo-heavenly venerate. I am very sorry to inform you that you will no longer have that chance. Ling Han said calmly. Heavenborn immediately turned around, and demanded, who? At present, he was several hundred meters tall, so this shout was also extremely loud and resounding. Chapter 27-23, 27-23 Past, Present. 27-23 Past, Present. It's your grandpa dog. The large black dog immediately darted out, barking. Kill yourself quickly so that the karmic life Heavenly Venerable can appear. Otherwise, Grandpa Dog will destroy you. Heavenborn crossed his hands behind his back. Even when I just came to being, I had no fear of you, what more now? Where is Ling Han? Come out. He knew that the voice just now had not come from the large black dog. Ling Han smiled slightly, and appeared on the mountain. At present, Heavenborn was massive. Even if he was standing in the canyon, he was not much lower than him. He looked at Ling Han coldly. In the past, the fact that I did not kill you was indeed my greatest miscalculation. Ling Han shook his head. A lot of people have said these words to me before, but their greatest miscalculation should have been meeting me in the first place. What arrogant words! Heavenborn exclaimed. This is confidence. Ling Han was still calm. In the past, even when he had worked together with Ji Wuming, Hua Ferong, and the others, they had still been no match for Hua Ferong, but now he had already caught up to Heavenborn in terms of cultivation level, and did not have any disadvantage any longer. Not being able to devour your bloodline in the past is a great regret of mine. I did not expect that you would deliver yourself into my hands. Very good. Heavenborn nodded, filled with confidence. Are you done with the nonsense? Give us back the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. The large black dog was the first to make his move. Heavenborn humphed, delivering a palm strike in response. Pang! The two great ninth heaven elites exchanged blows once, suddenly causing a great reverberation. However, though the man and dog had both been sent several hundred kilometers backwards, each of them looked like nothing had happened. Your physique. Heavenborn was surprised, and with a thought, he exclaimed, You have cultivated the indestructible divine metal physique. He possessed a sliver of the divine sense of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, so he naturally knew of the existence of the indestructible heaven scroll. The large black dog was proud. It is not just a bastard like you that can possess a divine metal-like physique. Heavenborn frowned slightly, but his frown immediately smoothened out. Even so, you will only be refined by me. He moved again, grabbing out at the large black dog. However, the large black dog had long since attained peak stage in 9th Heaven Celestial King tier, and had also learned various theories with Wally, so he was really just a step away from setting foot in the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. His battle prowess was extraordinary, especially when his physique had reached the level of divine metal, which naturally made him even more fearless. Similarly, Heavenborn had always possessed divine metal level defense. Though the two of them were fighting extremely intensely, it was a stalemate, with neither being able to wound the other. It was only excitement for show. Battle, battle, battle. They battled till the world became dark, but there was still no conclusion. Wang. However, Heavenborn's stomach was trembling wildly. There was a pseudo-heavenly venerate imprisoned there. It had great strength, and was capable of dealing impressive damage even to divine metal. It was fine if this was under normal conditions, as Heavenborn's own power would be enough to suppress it, but now he had to exchange blows with a peak stage 9th Heaven elite. With enemy on the inside, and an enemy on the outside, this made it slightly unbearable for him. His stomach split open quite a few times, ripped open by a claw. That giant snow monster very nearly managed to escape, and Heavenborn forcefully suppressed it. However, he was beginning to tire slightly. Heavenborn looked towards Ling Han. This man had not made his move yet. If he combined forces with the large black dog, there was absolutely no way Heavenborn could digest the thing in his stomach. That would need a very peaceful environment. Pooh! Heavenborn thus decided to just spread out his body, and turned once more into a metallic sheet, vomiting the object in his stomach. The giant snow monster instantly escaped, shrieking loudly. Heavenborn transformed his body, and returned to his usual size. This could cut down on the surface area on his body that would be exposed to attacks. Otherwise, it would be very disadvantageous in battle. Peng! The giant snow monster stomped down on Heavenborn. However, its foot was too big, so even the large black dog was within the range of this attack. "You ugly giant, why are you stomping down on me as well?" The large black dog dodged hurriedly. Though his physique was akin to divine metal, and he would definitely survive this stomp, he would still be stomped flat. That was still very painful. The giant snow monster ignored him completely, and just continued stomping, treating Heavenborn and the large black dog the same. They belonged to two different worlds in the first place. With the inclusion of the giant snow monster, this battle became even more complicated. This was a battle royale of 3 different sides, and was extremely lively. Ling Han unleashed a battle cry, and charged towards that giant snow monster. Peng, peng, peng. He threw a series of punches, every blow incredibly domineering. This giant snow monster's power was impressive, but its defense was far from reaching the level of the divine metal. Under Ling Han's mad barrage of attacks, one of its legs was soon forcefully blasted apart. Peng! Its figure suddenly swayed as it collapsed. Ling Han gave it another beating. Pa! The giant snow monster's head was also destroyed, and it was now completely dead. Clean and quick. Heavenborn's expression instantly changed drastically. This battle prowess was too powerful, wasn't it? This completely exceeded his expectations. They were both 9th heaven celestial kings, and Heavenborn was a manifestation of the willpower of the heaven and earth at that, but he was actually inferior to Ling Han? "I am feeling more and more regretful," Heavenborn said. "At the time, even if you had been spirited away by the chaotic stream of spatial energy, I should have continued to pursue and kill you completely." At the time, he had also been affected by the chaotic stream of spatial energy, but if he had been willing to sustain some injury and expend a little life force, he would still have been able to catch up to Ling Han. However, Heavenborn had thought that it would not have been worth it at the time, and that was why he had allowed the chaotic stream of spatial energy to spirit Ling Han away. As Heavenborn thought about it, there should have been no way for Ling Han to survive. He had not expected that not only had the latter not died, he was presently strong enough to surpass him. Ling Han smiled slightly. "Now, both of us are at the 9th heaven. Come then, let us have a fair fight, and see who is stronger between the two of us." Heavenborn sneered. "I admit that you are very freakish, but you will never be able to compare with heaven and earth." He suddenly opened his mouth, which became incredibly colossal, as he tried to swallow Ling Han. Ling Han had seen this move before. The pseudo-heavenly venerable tier giant snow monster was thus swallowed whole, and it was indeed very powerful. In this instant, he did not want to take this attack head-on, so he dodged. "Oh, so what if you are a manifestation of the realm?" "You can guess." Heavenborn did not answer, and merely continued to bite at Ling Han. Thoughts were turning over in Ling Han's head, and he said seriously, "Realms can devour one another to improve their own respective levels. Going by that account, it is possible that you, too, possess this kind of ability." Heavenborn couldn't help but be rendered speechless. He had not thought that Ling Han would really hit the nail on the head. "You had just eaten a pseudo-heavenly venerate just now, and I assume that you had wanted to digest it, but because of our interference, you had no choice but to stop the process." Ling Han continued his deduction following this line of thought. Could it be that there would be a day that you could become a second Hysteria? This was not an idea that belonged only to Heavenborn. It was the same for He Feng. He had also obtained one of Hysteria's tentacles, and had spent several epochs to study it so that he could be assimilated with Hysteria, and also gain the devouring ability. Thus, it was very easy for Ling Han to come up with this deduction. However, Heavenborn did not know this. His eyes were wide and mouth gaping. In his eyes, this was a great secret that only he knew. He had not thought that Ling Han would have guessed it so easily, and at this moment, he did not know how to react at all. This was just like how someone managed to dig out a precious gem with great difficulty, and was about to show off his feat to his companion, but in the end discovered that the path in his companion's home was completely laid out with these gems. That sudden sense of loss and dejection was really over the moon. Heavenborn took a deep breath, and only then did he manage to suppress his emotions. He shouted, "So what if you know that? Once I eat you, you will only become my nutrition. Is that right?" Ling Han chuckled, and drew the divine demon sword. "You can try." Chapter 27-24, 27-24 Beating to Heart's Content. 27-24 Beating to Heart's Content. Heavenborn couldn't help but pause. He was the manifestation of the willpower of heaven and earth, so his senses far surpassed his cultivation level. With a single glance, he could tell what was up with the divine demon sword. This was a heavenly venerate tool. His physique was indeed tough, and even a pseudo-heavenly venerate's blow would only leave behind a groove on his skin. However, if he was struck by a heavenly venerate tool, he definitely would be sliced open. Heavenborn couldn't help but thank his luck secretly. If he really had swallowed Ling Han into his stomach just now, he would probably have been ripped open and dissected by now. His recovery ability was indeed powerful, but the destructive power of a heavenly venerate tool was astonishing. It was unknown how much time he would need to heal his injuries. "Your luck is also overwhelmingly good." Heavenly venerate growled through gritted teeth. Even if he was the manifestation of the heaven and earth, he had not been able to obtain a piece of devouring metal himself. Though the Black Tower was also a heavenly venerate tool, it had not been forged by his own hands. Furthermore, it was still seriously damaged at present. It could not unleash the battle prowess that it should have at all. Hence, you had best accept your death obediently. Ling Han charged over. "Do you think I fear you?" Heavenborn took out the Black Tower. Wang! It immediately enlarged in his hand, turning into a staff-like form, which he wielded as he charged towards Ling Han. Boom! Two heavenly venerate tools clashed, instantly bursting with a light so dazzling that even the heaven and earth paled in comparison. With a strong flick of Ling Han's sword, Peng, Heavenborn was sent flying. The divine demon sword had only advanced to the heavenly venerable tier in terms of material, but the martial intent of a heavenly venerate had not been branded on it yet. Thus, it was extremely sharp and incredibly sturdy, but aside from these 2 points, it actually could only still be considered a celestial tool. As for the Black Tower, it was indeed a genuine heavenly venerate tool, but it was severely damaged at the moment, and was not able to awaken fully at all. This heavenly venerate tool that was not awakened was actually just considerably sharper than a celestial tool, and considerably sturdier. In terms of battle prowess, it was actually inferior. Hence, in the clash between the divine demon sword and the Black Tower, it was actually 2 pieces of devouring metal crashing into each other. Naturally, neither would be able to get the upper hand. The factor that decided the outcome of this clash would still be Ling Han's and Heavenborn's own battle prowess. Of course, it was certain that Ling Han was definitely stronger. Pang! Ling Han shot off in pursuit, and followed up with another punch, which landed on Heavenborn's nose. Even if Heavenborn's physique was tough, so what? This punch still broke his nose, and caused him to shed golden blood. Ling Han used this opening, and struck out with the sword, stabbing at Heavenborn's heart. Ding! Heavenborn laid out the Black Tower horizontally so that it acted as a shield in front of his chest. This strike was blocked, but as the massive power surged past, Heavenborn was again sent flying. He was involuntarily shocked. His power was much greater than the ordinary 9th Heaven Celestial Kings because he had also previously been able to draw on the power of heaven and earth to temper himself. But this could only be done in the celestial realm. After he had come to the flaming frost realm, he, a manifestation of the heaven and earth, had naturally fallen out of favor. That was the case even for him, so how was it that Ling Han could be even more powerful than that? Heavenborn was the manifestation of the dimension of the celestial realm. Why was it that it was he that would be inferior to this bug that had been born in this dimension? Pang! Heavenborn suffered another punch, and stumbled back from the impact. His face was covered with golden blood, and looked extremely tragic. This was Ling Han's power being too strong, surpassing Heavenborn's recovery ability. However, this could only cause him some slight injury. The body of divine metal was not so easy to destroy. Ling Han, you can do nothing to me. Heavenborn roared. Even if you are slightly superior to me, so what? I am the manifestation of the dimension, and possess a boundless room for evolution. My path of cultivation only requires me to devour elites. There is no need for comprehension at all. I will very soon surpass you, and at that time, I will crush you into dust. Ling Han scoffed. If you really had been so amazing, how could I have possibly caught up to you in cultivation level and suppressed you in battle prowess? Heavenborn was instantly rendered speechless. In the past, his cultivation level and battle prowess had both overwhelmed Ling Han, yet he no longer had the slightest bit of advantage now. Just think back to the past, how high-spirited he had been, snatching the heavenly venerate tool from Ling Han's hands, and beating down on him so badly that the latter could only flee in a panic. If it were not for the uniqueness of that spatial passageway, Ling Han would have long since died hundreds of millions of years ago. Damn it, damn it! Heavenborn shouted furiously in his mind, but time could not be reversed. To say nothing of the fact that he was only a manifestation of heaven and earth, even if he was the heaven and earth itself, this was something that he could not do. Ling Han used the 9 transformations divine scroll, and his battle prowess suddenly soared countless times over. Chasing after Heavenborn, he blasted him madly. Pang, 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 after several dozen punches, Heavenborn's whole chest had caved in. It was as thin as paper and almost close to being shattered. The large black dog could not help but remind, Little Han, take it easy. This body still has to be used by the heavenly venerate. Heavenborn naturally heard these words, and his face instantly scrunched up with anger. You guys actually want to use my body? Don't even think about it. Heavenborn fought back strongly, using the black tower like a staff. Boom! The heavenly venerate tool unleashed its might. Even if it only possessed the might of the devouring metal itself, that was still terrifying enough as it broke through the layers of space. But faced with Ling Han, this move was not effective. It couldn't be helped, for Ling Han possessed the divine demon sword. Boom! The two of them exchanged blows intensely. Ling Han, who possessed battle prowess on the level of late-stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, completely suppressed Heavenborn, beating him so hard that the latter was beginning to doubt himself. Why was he, a manifestation of heaven and earth, actually no match for Ling Han? Heavenborn was filled with hatred. If he had known this, he would not have come to the flaming frost realm at all. If this was the celestial realm, he could influence the heaven and earth to a limited extent. The various natural treasures would just appear on their own in front of him, helping his cultivation level to soar. However, the overall level of the celestial realm was too low, and it would target even just a first-tier heavenly venerate. Even he could not be exempted from this, because once he was separated from the heaven and earth, he was actually an independent individual. It was precisely because of such considerations that Heavenborn had come to the flaming frost realm so he could seek a wider space for his own growth. He had not thought that he would encounter a freak like Ling Han here. He gritted his teeth, and decided to retreat. If they continued fighting like this, he really would be done for. You can't escape. Ling Han declared coldly. He had already targeted Heavenborn for so long, so how could he miss this chance? Pang, pang, pang. Ling Han shot out like an arrow in pursuit, and he forced Heavenborn backwards once more with a series of more than a dozen punches. If you kill me, you will not be able to escape punishment either. Heavenborn roared harshly. At the very least, he was wearing the ring which had a recording ability. If he died by Ling Han's hand, those at the barrier would definitely know about it. This crime was much greater than killing fellow disciples at the martial academy. It was a definite death sentence. Even if you were the son of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, it would be useless. Ling Han shook his head, and asked smilingly, "Who said I would be killing you?" Heavenborn was slightly taken aback. Thinking back to the large black dog's previous words, he naturally came to a realization. The two of you want to bring the karmic life heavenly venerable back to life, and have him replace me in this body that I am presently occupying? Ha ha ha, that is delusional. If I die, I will definitely eradicate his lingering soul before my death. Ling Han humphed. Will you be able to? He attacked aggressively, every strike of his sword harsh and powerful, no longer keeping anything back. Heavenborn instantly felt the pressure on him increase greatly. Once Ling Han unleashed his might, he would not be able to hold up at all. After all, the gap in strength between the two of them was too wide. This was a one-sided oppression, a one-sided torment. Pang, pang, pang. Heavenborn was beaten tragically. When they had had a fair battle in the 9 Deaths formation, Heavenborn had already been no match for Ling Han, and now the gap between the two of them was even wider than before. After around 100 moves, Ling Han kicked Heavenborn over, and leveled the divine demon sword at the latter's neck. If it were not for the fact that he could not truly kill this guy, what need would there have been for Ling Han to use so many moves? Of course, beating Heavenborn to his heart's content was also another reason. Chapter 2725, 2725 Resurrection of Yuan Sheng. 2725 Resurrection of Yuan Sheng. Kill, stab me with the sword if you can. Heavenborn laughed loudly. Don't forget, Yuan Sheng and I share this body. If I die, it means he will be dead too. The large black dog jumped over and paced around in circles anxiously. Little Han, what should we do now? Ling Han smiled lightly. If we truly can't save karmic life heavenly venerable, then we'll just have to erase this person. Heavenborn was a personification of the realm, so his way of thinking would definitely be different from normal people's. If he was allowed to continue getting stronger, he definitely wouldn't fight against hysteria. Rather, he would want to be the second hysteria, or perhaps he might want to eliminate hysteria and dominate the Genesis world. Killing another person was actually quite simple, one just needed to remove your own and the other party's rings before the actual deed. Hearing the indifference in Ling Han's voice, Heavenborn couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine. Ling Han really wanted to kill him, it was no empty threat. What to do now? He didn't want to die. Don't you all want to save Yuan Sheng? He shouted, he was clutching at straws to save himself. The large black dog was also pacing up and down. In spite of the fact that Heavenborn was now captured, the question of how to save karmic life heavenly venerable had become a big problem. Ling Han smiled, and with a hook of his foot, the black tower fell into his hands. He couldn't help feeling rueful. After more than 100 million years, the black tower finally returned to him. Okay, I'll let you have this heavenly venerate tool as a gift. Heavenborn said. I can erase the martial intent on it, and it shall no longer have any relationship to me. How about it? A heavenly venerate tool in exchange for my life, Yuri gaining a huge profit from this trade. He was also capable of being flexible. In his opinion, as long as he was being given time to grow stronger, his future achievements would not be lower than those of hysteria. All the elites in the world would just become nutrition for him. A smile spread across Ling Han's face. All of a sudden, he picked up the black tower and smashed it against Heavenborn, directly targeting the head. With a clang, Heavenborn was dazed from the impact. What kind of power did Ling Han possess? Had he used all his strength in this strike, with the destructive power of the Heavenly Venerate tool, Heavenborn's head would have already become pulp. However, Ling Han didn't intend to kill Heavenborn, so he controlled his power in this strike, only causing Heavenborn damage. It was like hitting an ordinary person with a wooden stick. If you exerted too much force, you could kill them, but if you controlled the force, you would knock people unconscious or cause dizziness or physical injury. The degree of force which Ling Han used was the second type. He knocked Heavenborn dizzy and caused him injury. Under such a blow, Heavenborn couldn't control himself at all, so how could he destroy the soul of karmic life Heavenly Venerable? Moreover, the Black Tower was personally forged by karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Such a blow would cause injury to Heavenborn, but it would have absolutely no effect on the soul of karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Slowly obliterating the soul of Heavenborn in this way, all that remained could only be the lingering soul of karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Even if it was just a tiny little bit, and would be extremely weak when resurrected, he would eventually recover as long as there was enough time. The large black dog obviously thought of the same thing as well, and couldn't help clapping with his paws. Ingenious, ingenious. It was impossible to implement such a tactic before, as Ling Han's strength had fallen short when compared to that of Heavenborn, but now that he had surpassed him in battle prowess, this method became feasible and effective. Crack. 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 One blow after another. Although Heavenborn knew this wasn't right, how could he control his body? It was like someone was beating drums and gongs right next to the ear of an ordinary person, causing them to feel dizzy, lightheaded, and unable to think at all. Ah! Heavenborn could only utter such an angry roar, but it immediately came to an abrupt stop. Clang, only such melodious sound of the blows continued on endlessly. So what if he had the physique of divine metal? He could only tremble under the impact of being struck by the Heavenly Venerate tool. However, Heavenborn indeed was able to hold on for quite some time. 10 days, 1 month, and half a year had passed, yet he was still struggling and didn't crumble. Ling Han naturally did not lack patience, to say nothing of half a year. He could spend 1,000 or even 10 million years like this. He owed his life twice to karmic life Heavenly Venerable, so how could he not even have such patience? 3 years, 5 years. 10 years later, Heavenborn really couldn't endure it any longer. Under the continuous impact of the strikes with the Black Tower, his body was already covered with cracks, and he bled profusely with golden blood. This was due to Ling Han already holding back his strength, otherwise just being hit once with the Black Tower might have already caused Heavenborn's body to fall apart. Heavenborn cursed as his body glowed with black lithe, wanted to go all out and fight to the death. It was not for the sake of taking Ling Han down together with him, but to completely erase the lingering soul of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Still trying to do evil? Ling Han smiled. Clang, he struck hard with the Black Tower again. Heavenborn's body trembled violently, and then his limbs drooped, as if he was dead. Crack. 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 Ling Han hit a few more times, but Heavenborn did not have any reaction, only that his body would tremble for a moment after he had struck him. Have you beaten him to death? The large black dog came up to him. Ling Han nodded. The soul of Heavenborn should have died, but whether karmic life Heavenly Venerable can come back to life will depend on his good fortune. It would mainly depend on the strength of the lingering soul. If it was too weak, then it would just be like a worn candle in the wind, and would soon be extinguished. This would require karmic life Heavenly Venerable himself to have a strong will to survive. He had long since died, after all. Logically, it was impossible for him to come back to life. Oh, Heavenly Venerate, you are an absolutely strong man. Back then, you fought against 11 Heavenly Venerates of the foreign realm all by yourself. You can definitely overcome this little difficulty, the large black dog murmured, cheering for the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. "Oh, Heavenly Venerate, you are an extraordinary genius through the ages. Presently, hysteria is on a rampage. We are still waiting for you to resolve the matter, you must come back alive." Now all that Ling Han and the large black dog could do was wait. 10 years, 100 years, and 1,000 years had passed. The only thing that made them feel relieved was that Heavenborn's body was slowly recovering. The lacerations that were originally caused by being hit with Black Tower were slowly healing. This might be a wishful desire, but it might also be that Heavenborn's physique was indeed so tough, having such an ability even after death. 3,000 years later, Heavenborn's fingers suddenly twitched slightly. The large black dog instantly felt surprised and happy, but also extremely worried. This might be karmic life Heavenly Venerable coming back to life, but it was also possible that Heavenborn hadn't died at all, and then they would have rejoiced too soon. Ling Han also looked over. All these years, he hadn't wasted time either, and had been cultivating in order to reach the peak of the 9th heaven as soon as possible. He had also made significant progress in body art. Being boosted by Heavenly Venerable tier seals, his cultivation speed was extremely fast. Heavenborn's eyelids moved slightly, and then his eyes opened. It was a pair of clear eyes, with dominance that came from looking down on the rest of the world and absolute self-confidence, but also filled with compassion for mankind. It definitely wasn't Heavenborn. It was obviously the same face and body, but because of the change in his gaze, it made people feel as if he was a completely different person. Heavenly Venerate, the large black dog shouted, his voice trembling. The greater the expectation, the more he was afraid of failure. "It's me." Heavenborn nodded. At this moment, he should no longer be Heavenborn, but rather the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Ling Han laughed heartily. "Congratulations, Master." He offered up the Black Tower with both hands. This precious tool accompanied him for many years, from when he was weak to when he became strong, until it left him when he became a Celestial King. Now that he was a 9th Heaven Celestial King, and the Divine Demon Sword also became a Heavenly Venerate tool, he had already carved out a path of his own. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.